about, I thought this was important, talking about how no one party had a mandate to govern, and then going on to say that we accept the outcome. And this has been such an important part of everything that's happened, is that there's been no fight from the governing party as it's lost a significant share of power. I think this is one of the most important things that's happened. It really is a very important thing that we've seen that the ANC has done, is accept the loss of a significant share of power. And the president talking about that yesterday. I was interested that he started that he's focused so much on unemployment and said, we want to create jobs. This is the issue I'm going to focus on. The main issue I'm going to focus on, I think, was the way that he put it. And this is, and you've heard me say this before, in my mind, the biggest sort of medium, long-term problem that we face is getting people into employment, getting people into sustainable incomes really is the thing that we need to do. And so I must say I was quite glad to see that he spoke about that and sort of, making the point, I think, for political reasons. And I wondered if some of the political leaders in the audience from other countries were sort of listening when he said, we accept the outcome of the election and we don't fight about it. So it was, also big promises from the president yesterday, I thought. And I mean, I think entirely appropriately. If you look at the situation that we're in, if you look at the context in which he's in, I think one of the most important things to do for the moment is to sort of bring hope. I think people have lost hope. And when you don't have hope, you have despair. That's all that's left. So I think that hope is really important. And I think maybe there's a little bit of that at the moment for some people. Not for everyone, of course. I think for some people, there's a sense of betrayal almost, or of anger. Also, the president saying he will uphold the Constitution. Now, that's part of the oath of office. But then saying it again during his speech, saying that he would do that he would uphold the Constitution and the rule of law. And again, the rule of law, one of the tensions in our society. And for a long time, it's easy to understand why. First, the law was colonial, then it was apartheid. Never worked for the majority of people in this country. And now, of course, you've got to try and legitimize the rule of law. And that can sometimes be quite difficult to do. So I think there's a big conversation to have around upholding the rule of law. Really one of the most important things that can happen. I think the conversation now almost immediately, and you see this in the news websites this morning, goes to cabinet. Who's going to be in cabinet, who isn't, and from which party? Some speculation, in fact, that there could be a cabinet as early as tomorrow, which would be really interesting. I mean, would suggest that the president is moving very quickly. Has the legal power to do it, of course, but you would think, be a lot of consultation that needs to happen. But anyway, it seems that maybe he is going to do it. Some speculation as well that John Steenhuisen, the leader of the DA, could be a minister in the presidency for sort of policy, I think, is the idea. Let's see how that works. A couple of movements around the sort of government, which people in it call it a government of national unity. Bantu Holomisa, he's not part of it at the moment. He was talking a bit about it yesterday. Kenneth Meshwe, leader of the ACDP, he said he will not work with the ANC, so he just refuses to go into it. And I would think that if you are going to be in this government as a political party, you pretty much have today. After that, I think, the sort of, the ship may have sailed, the train may have left the station, the car may already be on the N3. In other words, what I'm saying is that, the clock may be ticking. So I think it's very interesting. And still now, the president needs to have the formal opening of Parliament. So you have two State of the Nation addresses in an election year, one before the election, one after. And that might be the first time we see members of MK in the National Assembly with Ramaphosa as president. And I thought that could be quite interesting. So let's just sort of watch all of that. There's been a development overnight in the story around the new DA MP, Ronaldo Grootes. He's from Nelson Mandela Bay. He was a councillor there, I think. And what had happened was, over the weekend, quite an old video had emerged in which he had made comments that were really probably racist, in which he basically was talking about Africa in a very derogatory way. And he had apologized for them. I think the video had been made in sort of 2009. He apologized for them in 2013. He apologized for it again in 2020. This had come up, and then there was a petition saying that someone who holds these views should not be in Parliament. He said he did not hold those views anymore. That was video one. Well, overnight, what I suppose I'll call video two has emerged. And let me just be clear here. He says that the video is not him. It's certainly, if it is him, it's a very old video, probably from, I don't know, before 2009, I don't know. But in the video, the language is just awful. Uses the K word, uses the N word, uses the F word in reference. A cause for violence. I mean, it's just the most offensive thing that you can imagine. I mean, just astonishing. He says, from what I can see, he says that this is not him. He says that it might be artificial intelligence or something, but it's not him. Helen Ziller is quoted as saying, she's from the DA, that if it is him, that's the end of him. He will be removed as an MP, and they're now investigating the video. So that's sort of video 2. He denies it's him. Video 1, he doesn't deny it's him. He's apologized. But video 2, he denies it's him. Helen Ziller says if it is him, he will be removed. Full stop. I suppose we add the phrase finish and klar at this case. But it is, I mean, if someone sends it to you, just think twice before you open it, because I lasted 10 seconds. I was like, wow. And you might find it more triggering than me for various reasons. But yeah, it was, I lasted 10 seconds, quite something. A confirmation this week, the Engineering Council of South Africa has moved against the engineer who was in charge or overseeing the George building project that led to that collapse. And this person has now been placed on what's called a sort of precautionary suspension. Not named by the council, but you can sort of work out who it is if you go and look at the, and various people have named this person. But this person's now been placed on a precautionary suspension, and they'll investigate what happened there. And then I was interested in this. Salia Brink, who's the mayor of Tshwane, has been speaking this week, and he said that despite the fact there had been no load shedding, cities should still move away from relying on Eskom for their electricity. And I was just reminded of the mediated conversation we had on Tuesday about load reduction. And yes, it is true that Eskom, for the moment, is meeting the sort of agreed-to demand, if I can call it that. But we still have load reduction. So, yes, you may not be living with load shedding at the moment, but millions of people, basically, life hasn't changed. They're still living with load reduction. And I made the point in that mediated conversations, usually the township areas and not the suburban areas, for various reasons. Some of them are technical reasons, but various reasons that are playing out there. And this is, I think, the next sort of frontier, the next challenge, if you like, that we need to deal with, is dealing with load reduction. Clearly still a need for more electricity to be generated in South Africa. I think we can agree on that. The argument about who would do it and how it's done, we can have. But I don't think we can disagree on the fact that we still need more generation capacity in South Africa. All right, good to hear from you. Who do you think should be in the cabinet? Who out? 086 000 2032. You SMS 41391. You tweet SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes. Send your WhatsApp voice note to 0614104107. Good morning. Nice to have you along with us this Thursday morning, the day after the inauguration. It's 16 minutes after 6.
The Daily News Diary on SAFM.
And Musa, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, interesting to see what happens next. What's coming up today?
Oh, yes, it is the beginning of a new era. So reaction and analysis on the inauguration of President Cyril Ramaphosa. In the President's acceptance speech, he highlighted the clarity with which the South African electorate had voiced its expectations for national leaders, and also vowing to be a president, for all South Africans and work for everyone, that is, regardless of their political affiliation. So just charting a way forward for the government of national unity, expectations as to when the announcement of his cabinet will be made, and the presidency had said that the president did not want to delay the cabinet announcement.
So, there's also a chance for him to grab the political initiative, appoint people, and they won't pull out. So maybe there's a plan here.
Yeah. In courts, EFF leader Julius Malema yesterday took to the stand in the firearm discharge case against him and his co-accused Adrian Snyman, and he told the court the firearm he discharged was a toy gun. Today, the state is expected to cross-examine Malema. Malema and Snyman are facing charges of discharging a firearm and endangering a crowd. That was during the party's 5th anniversary celebrations in 2018. And in the Athlone Magistrates Court, 3 men are expected to appear, and that is in connection with the murder of the former Seskona People's Movement leader, Luiso Nkotla, who was gunned down in April last year, and this while he was addressing residents near a satellite police station in Philippi, and it's believed that he was targeted for his role in talks to clear the Central Railway line. The Senzo Mehiwa murder trial also continuing this morning at the High Court in Pretoria. That is following an early adjournment yesterday. yesterday. And Gauteng police saying they are analysing video footage from an incident involving about 40 individuals who allegedly tried to force their way into an IEC warehouse. And if you big on arts, the National Arts Festival in Makhanda is set to kick off today, and this year's festival is significant as it celebrates 50 years of creative freedom and showcases the iconic South African works.
Yeah, a lot to look at there in Makhanda. And Musa, thank you very much indeed. We'll be listening on the radio 19 minutes after 6.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
Look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, fine. The temperature's 9 and 23. Johannesburg, fine. 5 and 23. Vereeniging, morning frost, otherwise fine. 0 and 22. Bombela, fog in the morning and the evening, otherwise partly cloudy. 12 and 24. Polokwane, fine. 8 and 22. Mahakeng, fine. 4 and 24. Vryburg, fine. 1 and 24. Mangaung, fine. -1 and 20. Kimberley, fine. -1 and 22. Uppington, fine. 4 and 24. Cape Town, partly cloudy. A light and variable wind, 11 and 20. George, partly cloudy, a light and variable wind, 8 and 18. Gqeberha, cloudy, isolated showers and rain, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, a light northeasterly wind, 8 and 20. East London, fine, a light northwesterly wind at first, otherwise fresh to moderate northeasterly. The temperatures, 11 and 19. eThekwini, cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a moderate to fresh southerly wind, 16 and 21. Richards Bay, cloudy, scattered showers and rain, a moderate to fresh southerly wind, 16 and 20. And Pietermaritzburg, morning fog patches, otherwise cloudy, 9 and 18.
Are you ready to empower yourself with an accredited tertiary qualification? Stadio Higher Education's distance learning programs will set you up for success. Whether you're balancing work and family or you're a school leaver who must work to support yourself and your studies, Stadio offers access to high-quality, affordable qualifications in law, teacher education, commerce, admin and management, policing, and more. Mid-year applications are now open. Visit stadio.ac.za and register today. Stadio, a new vision in higher education.
And we will buy 500 cars, and we will buy 500 more. Just to be the one who buys your car, will come to you and offer more. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-dun-da-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
SABC Sport delivers a warm blanket this June.
3 teams are playing their hearts out in the PSL promotional playoffs, all hunting for a special ticket to the Big Boys League of Ibhola laseMzansi.
The queens of the beautiful game kick like real champs in the Hollywood Bet Super League.
Foot Freak brings you up to speed on African football, while Final Analysis wraps up your weekend.
LFC TV is the ultimate destination for Liverpool FC fans, while Sport at 10 keeps you awake on Wednesdays.
Dive deep into comprehensive analysis of the world of boxing on the TKO.
The Journos podcast brings together top sports journalists for engaging conversations and expert insights.
Countdown to Paris brings you up to speed on the build-up to the Olympic Games Paris 2024 on Saturday evenings.
There's action galore in the world of SABC Sport, Boxing World Weekly, NBA Lifestyle, Youth Sport Show, Goats Like Us, Racing 92, and many more. Happy Youth Month.
Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
22 minutes after 6, good morning. In the Red Sea, a second ship has now sunk after being attacked by Houthi groups who are operating from Yemen. The groups have been using missiles and drones and sometimes boats loaded with explosives to attack ships in the Red Sea. The groups say they do this to prevent ships from trading with Israel because of Israel's attacks on Gaza. This is having a huge impact on the cost of shipping. It's also having a big impact on the routes that ships are using and choosing to take. Timothy Walker is the Maritime Project Leader and Senior Researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Timothy, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners.
We've seen a big effort by Western nations to protect shipping in the area, their U.S. naval patrols, for example. Now a second ship has sunk. It would appear that protecting shipping is becoming very difficult.
It is becoming very difficult. Almost every day this month, the Houthis have launched several waves of attacks, types of systems being used, boats at sea, remotely operated, drones and ballistic missiles. Most of these have been shot down, often by U.S. forces. But as I said, this pattern is happening almost every day, so it is becoming much, much harder, as you say, to protect ships which are very vulnerable to this kind of attack.
Where are the supplies coming from? I realize that drones are much cheaper than, planes and things like that, but they're obviously coming from somewhere, and there's obviously a steady supply of them.
Yes, the original source of all of this equipment is mostly Iran. They're operating, the Houthi are operating Iranian drones, and the manufacture of these systems is something which, the reason they've chosen them, or rather they keep using them, is because they're able to manufacture many of the components themselves. What is happening is that they're increasingly less reliant or dependent on an outside source for a lot of the equipment. They're able to manufacture some of the basic things themselves, and this means they're able to sustain it, as well as having very large stockpiles of these weapons, which they can fire almost at will.
I mean, it's clearly very, very effective. It's working for them. They're able to have a huge impact, and it seems almost no one's able to stop them.
Yes, and it's very hard to stop this. It's also not degrading necessarily Israel's efforts. A lot of the shipping which is going to Israel or is very Israeli connected has been diverted for a long time. And they're targeting many vessels which are often very loosely linked, not just to Israel, but to the US and UK. The patterns of shipping have kind of settled over the last couple of months, where most of the really, really valuable vessels, the mega kind of Ever Given, if you remember, everyone remembers the Suez Canal incident from a few years ago, they're all coming around the Cape now. The targets, the available targets, the vulnerable targets going through the Red Sea have reduced a lot. And the kind of vessels which are being attacked now, we saw yesterday the Tutor sinking, the vessel where unfortunately somebody died when the vessel was attacked as well, had a armed guard, a couple of armed guards on board. But there is a video available going around social media showing the actual attack happening. Were able or didn't have the means to do anything about this as well, which makes a lot of shipping industry officials and people very worried that the ability to prevent this kind of thing happening again is very small.
As I say, the Houthi groups say they're doing this in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. You've pointed out that they seem to be attacking all shipping. Could this be changing into something else? I mean, clearly this group, which has its own interests and its own aims, has the ability to control a major sort of choke point in global shipping.
Yes, I think the key Houthi goal is not ultimately to see. Well, I think part of their aims ideologically would be to see the end to what's happening in Gaza at the moment. But what they ultimately want to be is treated as the legitimate Yemeni government. There is an officially recognized Yemeni government, and the Houthi are insurgents and carrying out a kind of asymmetrical warfare against them, as well as the international community and its shipping. And they're trying to secure this kind of legitimacy through effectively a kind of a racket or a racketeering in the Red Sea, where the determining people's choices gives you that kind of power, which, if it comes to a negotiating table, means that they have to be treated as, in effect, the legitimate sovereign, which is not something I think the rest of the world wants to see them achieve, because it means that they've achieved that through violence and terrorism.
Timothy Walkup, thank you. Maritime project leader and senior researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. 27 minutes after 6.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
There's an American cricketer I'd never heard of called Andries Gous. Where did he learn his cricket? Pennsylvania?
Born in South Africa, apparently, yes. But you know what? It was Kagiso Rabada and Anrich Nokia's brilliant death bowling that held him off and holding the USA to 176 for 6. What a thrilling finish. That was the victory for the Proteas. They completed an 18-run victory at the Sir Vivian Richards Stadium in Antigua and kicking off the Super 8 stage of the Men's T20 World Cup, chasing 195 for victory. The USA, unfortunately, were restricted to 176 for 6, and that's thanks to Kagiso Rabada. Here he is.
The USA have been chasing well, and that's the reason why they chose to bowl first. And I must commend our batting lineup, especially Quinton. And at the end of the day, we got a respectable total on the board, or more than a respectable total on the board, which gave us an opportunity to, put them under pressure with the ball. Yeah, we got a couple of early wickets, and then Andries Gous batted extremely well and gave them a good chance, and they came close in the end.
In another match, Smriti Mandana produced an outstanding all-round performance to lead India's women to a 4-run win over the Proteas women in their second ODI match played at the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru yesterday. The Indian opener registered her second ton of the series, 136 off 120, as she inspired her side to 325 for 3. In reply, the Proteas women fought their way to 321 for 6, and that was thanks to a pair of centuries from Laura Wolfart and Marizanne Kapp. Soccer action, Somila Insundwana, he had a well-taken brace as Richards Bay retained their position in the DStv Premiership with a 4-0 victory, and that was over Baroka FC in the final Premier Soccer League promotion relegation playoff match that took place yesterday. Elsewhere, Jamal Musiala scored again as Germany continued their winning start to Euro 2024 with a 2-0 victory over Hungary to become the first side to the knockout stages. And Albania, they snatched a stoppage time equaliser for a 2-2 draw against Croatia in their European Championship contest yesterday. And in tennis action, Zhizhen Zhang caused the upset of the second round of the ATP 500 Halle Open in Germany. He put out the number 3 seed Daniel Medvedev 6-3, 2-6, 7-6, and that was his victory in 2 hours, 7 minutes. That's a wrap. We'll have more sport for you on Sunrise. Top of the hour, I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. Find out more from Rand Water about what's happening with all of the water issues in the Gauteng and surrounding provinces. That's in the next half hour. You with SFM leading the conversation, 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the inauguration is not an ordinary day for the country and its people. He delivered his acceptance speech yesterday after his inauguration as head of state for a second term at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. The firearm discharge case against EFF leader Julius Malema will resume today in the East London Magistrates Court, where the state prosecutor is expected to cross-examine Malema. And intense heat in Saudi Arabia has reportedly led to the deaths of hundreds of Muslim pilgrims, leaving relatives desperately searching for news of their loved ones. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Tracking a build-up of traffic on the N1 Rambo through the four-ways this morning. Just after Malabongwe, all of a sudden it comes to a shuddering halt as you line up towards the Winnie Mandela off-ramp to four-ways. The N12 out of Alberton is slow. It's a usual problem with a breakdown at Elan's interchange. So the N12 from sort of Ford Trekker Road up towards the N3 join at Elan's is very slow. N1 getting busy but no major problems coming out of Pretoria. That's the good news. We found the problem on Durban's Spaghetti Junction. It's a broken down vehicle on the ramp from the N3 outbound trying to link onto the N2 north. That ramp is apparently closed, so there is a bit of traffic confusion and a bit of congestion on the N3 out of Durban around Spaghetti Junction territory. Ashburton through to Cato Ridge, looking okay, no major disruption through the works area. Cape Town Chapman's Peak Drive is closed. That's following rockfalls after rains this week. Okarp-Sevek will be the alternative route until Chappies has been reopened. And if you're driving Southern Cape area, a lot of roadworks between Albertinia and Mossel Bay can really extend travel times. Bit of waiting around at some stop-go controls, and roadworks popping up between Sedgefield and Knysna, holding traffic on that section of the N2 as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Intel Lingler, good morning. How are you doing?
Morning, Stephen. I'm well, thanks, and I hope you're good.
Yeah, all good. How are the markets looking?
Well, global markets were pretty mixed yesterday. In yesterday's close, rather, trading was thin as U.S. markets were closed. Over in Asia, stocks are trading in the red, a big turnaround after trading mostly in positive territory on Wednesday. It seems like investors are reluctant to make significant moves amid a lack of any new catalyst after that holiday on Wall Street and mixed cues from other global markets. Now, sentiment is quite different here at home, with markets still in the green. The All Share ended the today 1.2% higher, benefiting from the general optimism we've been seeing as investors are now less concerned about South Africa's political landscape. The rand, in the meantime, breaking through another critical mark on the president's inauguration day, soaring to its highest level in almost a year. It's currently sitting at 17.95 to the dollar.
And British inflation easing to 2%. I mean, they had inflation higher than ours at one point. It's come down quickly.
Double digits last year, Stephen. Now it seems like the UK has a handle on those prices as it slowed to the Bank of England's target of 2%. This is the first time it's hit these levels since 2021. Now this print won't probably influence today's rates meeting as the BOE prepares to deliver a rates decision, but it is likely to keep that central bank on track for interest rate cuts later this year. Now when digging deeper into the data, you'll notice that services inflation remained sticky, which is likely to keep policymakers cautious about acting too soon. Prices in the services sector rose 5.7% last month after a reading of 5.9% in April, and economists had expected a sharper decline to 5.5%. Now, the overall print has been welcomed. The figures suggest that the UK is somewhat a leader in suppressing price pressures, with some economists saying that it has won the international race to get back to target, being the first amongst the Euro area and US to bring headline inflation back down to 2%. Economists are now pegging a cut in August, which is ahead of the Fed, which is expected to only ease policy in September.
And the Competition Commission, the findings of this fresh produce market inquiry.
Now, the Competition Commission has identified competition problems in the local fresh produce market. In a provincial report, the watchdog noted that there were some instances of high markups by retailers which have been sustained over a period of time. Now, the Commission further said that this was an indicator of a lack of competition. The inquiry also noted that there is still slow progress in integrating historically disadvantaged small to medium enterprise farmers into retailer supply chains. Now, the inquiry focused on 5 fruits, including apples, citrus, bananas, pears, and grapes, as well as 6 vegetables, namely potatoes, onions, carrots, cabbages, tomatoes, and spinach. It further found that fresh produce prices weren't transparent enough and added that the market was concentrated with the top 4 retailers, ShopRite, Spar, Pick n Pay, and Woolworths, commanding a substantial share of that market. Now, to remedy some of the issues, the Comcom suggested a new fund be created to assist new entrants and that property owners make a minimum allocation of space available in their malls to smaller emerging retailers and players from disadvantaged backgrounds.
Darling Lachela, thanks very much indeed. Back in an hour, more business news through the day here on SAFM.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAFM Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
A parliamentary panel in Kenya recommending the government scrap new taxes on things like cars and bread. I mean, there have been people in the streets over this.
That is quite true, Stephen. This was also led by the protest that has been going on in the capital city, Nairobi. Yesterday, the chairperson of the Parliament Finance Committee, Kimani Kuria, saying that we have listened to the views of Kenyans. We need to can protect Kenyans from the increased cost of living. Remember, Stephen, yesterday, as you said, those tax hikes were particularly on the motor vehicles and on the bread. Now, the Parliamentary Committee has reviewed it. And remember, Stephen, it was not an easy decision, considering that in Kenya we have a parliament that is a governing coalition. So they have to go to and fro to agree on scrapping all those tax hikes to avoid the crisis that we have seen in Kenya going on from yesterday.
And then in Chad, 9 people have been killed after a fire set off explosions in a military ammunition depot. That's crazy.
Stephen, President Mahamat Debi Itno said that investigation will be conducted on that, and he has already passed the message of even condolences to 9 people who have been killed. Others are saying that, Stephen, remember, Chad has been accused of also being involved in the conflict in Sudan. And others say this is not just an incident. There's something that is brewing in the capital city, N'Djamena. Despite that, like I said, the president has been mum around it and said that the investigation will be conducted about that explosion in the military ammunition depot.
And then at least 5 people have been killed. This is in North Kivu.
Stephen Tshisekedi was here at the inauguration yesterday, but in Eastern DRC, it is still heating up. Yesterday, there were 3 women and a girl who were killed with the bombardment in the area of the North Kivu, Butembo. Others are accusing M23, the M23 rebel, for this attack, Stephen. And like I said to you, we have spoken about DRC for many occasions on this update, that both the UN and the AU and the SADC are also failing the people of the DRC. And this attack, it also shows how the M23, it is active in the Eastern DRC, Butembo, as well as Goma. That's where they're highly active, Stephen. And this causes to say more than 1.5 million are being moved away from their homes since this conflict erupted 2 years ago.
And then the issue of Rwandan, the genocide there, and the fact that some of the people who were involved went to Europe. The New York Times has a big report on this.
Stephen, that report, it says since 1994, Rwanda has sent indictments against 141 genocide suspects in Europe, but only 24 have been tried. And when you look at the numbers here, Stephen, you'll do 47 indictments to France, 40 to Belgium, but those 2 countries have only tried 7 and 12 genocide suspects. They are also saying that the other countries that are hosting these suspects are Britain, Italy, and Denmark. That's where they are still struggling to close this matter. It's a matter of agency, Stephen, as Rwanda is turning 30 years of that genocide that has happened, but they're still lamenting with this extradition and the matters being resolved in these foreign countries to bring back those 141 genociders. And
then in our archives, you're taking us back to the 20th of June, 1997.
Stephen, 27 years ago, the then National Party, served legal papers to the TRC giving notice of the High Court application. It was all about accusing the chairperson and the deputy chairperson that they were biased and they were still pursuing old political battles. We know how the TRC report, even when it came, Stephen, there were tensions in this country in terms of how it also found that even the National Party and some of the liberation movements were equally complicit to some of the human rights violations that happened during the apartheid days. So this was an important day as we are looking back at the 30 years of our freedom and democracy. Asante Sana AG, as we're still leading the conversation, SAFM observing the Youth Month.
Rights Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you so much. Back, of course, tomorrow. More news from our continent through the day, 19 minutes to 7.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our transactional banking solutions. Accessing our transactional banking solutions means you'll get a dedicated manager from the country's best relationship bank. When you have a dedicated relationship manager, their business is to understand your business and its financial needs. By understanding all your needs, they can connect you with the right sector and product experts across 15 key African markets. You see, there's transactional banking, then there's transactional banking with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number to dial. So much to talk about. Expecting a cabinet soon. Saziso on the line from Mpumalanga. Saziso, hi, good morning. Also, the cabinet tomorrow, the new government. How are you feeling?
Morning, Stephen. Thank you for taking my call. I had to wait for myself to calm down before making this comment. Because here's the thing. The opposition parties before elections, they sold us that they want to take ANC below 50. Meaning they were supposed to have a plan of if they get to 50, if they don't get to 50.
Yeah.
But there was no plan. Now, the ANC forms the government of national unity, or whatever you want to call it. You have the likes of Mr. Maimane that want to build one South Africa. And he doesn't want to be part of the government of national unity. How is he going to build one South Africa on his own?
Yeah.
And then he says he wants to give a job in each household. He's going to do that from Parliament? No way. But if ever he can join the government and become a deputy minister of social development or whatever you call it, then he can push his agenda from within.
Okay, so what you're saying is that someone like him should actually get into it rather than stay out of it.
Exactly. Look like the PAC really joining it. The president of Municipal municipality in the Eastern Cape, one of the underdeveloped areas. Now, you are inside, you are the deputy minister of... You talk about water and sanitation projects in the government. You say, but what about municipality?
Yeah.
Then you push things from inside.
Yeah.
You lead that in the community. The community sees you, even though you are in government. They see you as the one who brought change.
Yeah.
Come 29, you go and ask for their votes. They've seen you doing something for them. You've improved their lives.
Yeah. All right. No, Sizizo, let's see. I mean, so many people have been focusing on how people going into the coalition might lose votes. You're suggesting that they might win votes. That's quite an important point, actually. Sizizo on the line from Mpumalanga. Thank you. 16 minutes to 7.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Well, Rand Water telling residents in parts of Joburg to store water ahead of what it's describing as extensive maintenance. The outages could affect water supplies in Joburg from this Saturday all the way through until the end of July, so 5 weeks, call it. Makanosi Maruz, the Rand Water spokesperson. Makanosi, good morning. Thanks for your time again on SAFM.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners.
What kind of maintenance are you going to be doing?
We are conducting proactive maintenance of our infrastructure and assets. So, Stephen, we're starting, like you indicated, on the 22nd of June up until the 29th. But we need to indicate and maybe also reiterate that the project will be implemented on different dates in different municipalities. So we're starting on the 22nd only in Mogale City. Only a small portion of Mogale City will be impacted. Then we move to other municipalities on the 24th. Then we'll move to Johannesburg on the Ekenhof pumping station.
Okay. Obviously, you do maintenance on a regular basis. But I can't ever remember you issuing such a big warning like this, that you're doing so much maintenance that people must actually store water, that there'll be disruptions for a sort of longer period. What is different about this time?
All right. Maybe with regards to storage of water, that communication is coming from municipalities, in particular City of Johannesburg. Remember, they are the ones supplying residents.
Sure.
So that call is coming from City of Johannesburg. With regards to the size of this project, we have been postponing maintenance projects because we remember in the past we had challenges with water supply. So we really wanted to move this project in winter. We know that it's a low demand season. Then we are preparing for summer. We are preparing for spring. We know that the demand is quite high during those two seasons. So we wanted to maintain during this period.
Okay, I understand all of that. What I still don't get is why there'll be such a big disruption now when it's not happened in the past. Is it just that there's such a big maintenance backlog?
There is a maintenance backlog. As I was saying, we could not do maintenance while people did not have water. But also with regards to the supply, some areas will still have water while we're doing the maintenance project. We have given municipalities a schedule. Some of them will be pumping, the pumping will be reduced at 50%. So people will still have water while we're doing the maintenance.
Sure. It'll be very variable. If you live at the bottom of a hill, you might not notice. If you live at the top of a hill, you'll notice on the first day. It depends on the reservoir near you. I understand. I think I understand all of that. What I'm trying to get to, Makanosi, is, let me put it like this. Is your infrastructure in a much worse state than it's been before? Is that really the problem that you have to deal with now?
No, Stephen. As we're saying, it's proactive maintenance. We want to improve the reliability and efficiency of our system. We have delayed the maintenance due to supply challenges that we had in the past. Now we are clumping them together because it's winter season, low season.
Okay. these two questions are going to sound contradictory, okay? We understand that you have problems. We understand what you're trying to do is difficult. We understand that there are moments of very high demand. We all know what happens in the sort of first to last week of September when it's very dry and people suddenly, it's very hot and people want water. I understand some of the longer term problems. Is what you're doing ambitious enough? In other words, do you think once you've done this, you'll have done everything that needs to be done? Because I know there's a lot that needs to be done.
Stephen, look, it's a start. We need to do something. So if we want to preserve the infrastructure, to increase the lifespan, we need to do the maintenance. So this is the start of it. We have been doing maintenance. This one, it's a bigger project. We are saying we're being proactive. We want to ensure that the quality, the lifespan is actually increased. So we are starting somewhere. We're saying work with us as municipalities, work with us as residents.
Okay, and you've got some reserve capacity, not for water, but of technical skills and people and all the equipment. Because I know what happens when you go and change something on a car. You find something else that's broken, right? And I'm sure it's the same for a water system. And any disruption leads to all sorts of problems with the pipes, and they get shorter and fatter when they're under pressure and longer and thinner when you stop putting water down them. So what I'm trying to get to is, do you have enough spare capacity in case the maintenance leads to other problems or you discover other problems?
No, we do have capacity in terms of the knowledge, the skills. Our engineers are there. We also have built in more days should we need to have. So in terms of capacity with our project management, we have built in for those days and for those incidents.
Makanosi Maru, thank you. The spokesperson for Rand Water, 11 minutes to 7.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Errol on the line from Durban. Errol, hi. Been a while since we last heard from you. You want to talk about former President Zuma. Good morning.
Yeah, I had a bad cold. I've just got over it. My voice is still a bit, you're not right, but can you hear me all right?
We can, Errol. Thank you. Yeah, colds and flu are going around. I know plenty of people who have this problem. Anyway, the former president, go for it.
Yeah, Stephen, with this court case against Zuma and Denel still pending, I mean, what would happen if he was found guilty and sent to jail, just like Shabir Sheikh was?
Yeah.
There could be a lot of violence with him so popular now and his party doing so well. I mean, that'll make the violence in 2020 look like a picnic party, a Sunday.
Yeah. Errol, I don't know is the short answer. It depends, I think. I know that, it seems, I think, that the violence in 2021 was a direct result of him going to jail. I know the South African, I think it was the Human Rights Commission, disagreed with that. But the short answer is, I don't know. But at the same time, I would suggest if you want to live by the rule of law, everyone has to live by the rule of law. So you can't say a threat or a concern about a reaction to something means that someone doesn't go to jail, if you see what I mean. It's a very complex thing.
Yeah, it is.
All right, Errol on the line from Durban. Glad you're getting over the cold. Let's speak to Solomon in Imkhanyakude. Solomon, hi, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners.
Welcome, go for it.
Yes, I got a different view to the previous caller.
Yeah?
I think there shall be no violence.
Yeah?
The state must line up its processes, law enforcement, and ensure that there is no undermining of the rule of the law.
Yeah.
We remember that he feigned sickness, was bedridden, but in the previous election campaign, he was up and jumping. So I don't think South Africans should be robbed of him having his day in court.
Yeah.
And he must face his consequences of his actions, and the police must be there like it is now. Police has been mobilized, and all agencies within the SAPS are active to try to track whatever chance of any violence erupting. So I think he must go for it. We need to hear what exactly happened during the arms deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree, Solomon. I mean, he needs to give his version under oath so that we can hear it.
Yeah, we need. I think we've been longing for it. It's over 20 years now.
Yeah.
Dodging and doing all sorts of things. But the previous election, I think he proved that he's a very controversial figure.
Sure.
Yeah.
He reminds me of a former president in the United States. There was violence in support of him too.
Yeah, I think the nation has to stand up and allow the rule of law, I think, to be the cause, to be the way we live, all of us.
Solomon in Mkanya Kure, thanks very much indeed. Well, the President talking about the rule of law yesterday, one of the big tensions in our society. 7 minutes to 7.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Things changing very rapidly and quickly this morning. A crash on Joburg's N12. Joburg bound by the Edenvale exit. Left lane is closed. There is a slowdown from Craft Road if you're in from Boksburg, Benoni. Also, there's just been a crash on the N3 North near the roadworks at Van Buren. So you've got the left lane closed for the roadworks, and then you've got an additional lane closure there for this collision. So already very heavy coming out of Alberton and Germiston up past Cement Factory in towards Gillies. On top of that, you've also got a breakdown on the N12 out of Alberton at Elands Interchange. So you work your way past that slowly, and then you hit that wall of traffic all the way through to Gillies into that crash. Also a collision scene on the N12 driving in from Protea Glen and Lenasia. That collision just before the Golden Highway exit. N12 Joburg bound again. Very heavy backlogs. Bit of pressure building on the N1 through Randburg up towards the Winnie Mandela Drive off-ramp at Four Ways. Durban, the breakdown on the N2 at Spaghetti Junction has now been cleared. It caused a bit of a disruption. N3 outbound linked to the N2 North, but that's out of the way now, so Spaghetti Junction traffic is flowing. But the N2 North is backlogging as you come from the M7 up into the works near Westwood Mall. A lot of closures around China Mall, area of Durban. Brook Street remains closed. That's effectively the top end of the M4, probably closed for some time. It was due to reopen originally tomorrow, but I don't see that happening. And then if you're driving into Cape Town, there's a breakdown on the N2 near Jan Smuts Drive in the Pinelands area, so coming through from the N7, so pretty heavy passing Langa. The N7 itself passing Langa up towards Beaufort Circle as you line up into Epping. That's quite heavy. And Chapman's Peak Drive remaining closed due to Rock Falls, Okamp Chebec, the alternative route in the meantime. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Johannesburg Water is concerned about the current high water consumption, which is causing a severe strain on the entity's systems and threatens the sustainability of consistent bulk supply. Play your part in conserving water by following these simple tips. Reporting leaks and burst pipes. Do not leave taps dripping and repair your internal leaks. Wash your car on the grass as this will water your lawn at the same time and shorten your showering time. Together, we can reduce water wastage and protect this precious resource. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
For years, Outsurance has been saying they'll save you money on your car insurance, or you can ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand cash if they don't. Here's Fundi, 46 from Brackenfell.
I was not happy with what I was paying. I heard about the 500 Rand from Outsurance, but they give me lesser amount for my car. I'm paying 523 Rand on my 2013 Hyundai iX35.
So here's how it works. SMS out to 30754. We'll give you a no-obligation car insurance quote. If the quote is less than you're currently paying, you'll end up saving money on your car insurance every month. And if it's more than you're currently paying, you can ask for 500 Rand. And if you've been with the same insurer and claim free for 3 years or more, tell us you want 1,500 Rand.
Give Outsurance a call. It's a win-win. You can't lose.
SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's, and limits apply. Premiums are risk profile dependent and reviewed annually. Client comments do not constitute financial advice.
Set in a gleaming new high-tech trauma center that deals with only the most serious cases, an emergency medical team must battle through the crucial first hour of care to save lives that hang in the balance. Each distinctive case is told with a thrilling intensity and nail-biting urgency as the team work on the very edge of the medically possible. This is a medical drama like no other. This is Critical. Mondays to Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. Starts 11 June. Channel your best drama with BBC Primetime, only on S3. Open up.
First in the morning, SAFM Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
3 minutes to 7. Good morning. In Joburg, the city's now preparing to cut off more people who are not paying for their power, and particularly in suburbs like Steyn City, Bryanston and Kyalami. So I suppose you would say upmarket areas. The city also having problems with load reduction in other areas. Inyaniso Jeko is the spokesperson for the City of Joburg's Group Finance. Inyaniso, good morning to you. How have people been able to go for so long without paying for electricity when they can clearly afford to?
That's why we say it's an issue that relates to behavior. People have chosen or decided not to pay the city. For instance, just to make a practical example, a date for yesterday, we're in Saxonwald and Parktown. In those areas, we found houses which were disconnected a week before, having reconnected themselves illegally. Yesterday, we're in Brasonia and Glen Vista. Same thing happened. We found houses there which had reconnected themselves back to the city's grid, having not paid while they had been disconnected. And in those two areas, yesterday in particular, we removed electricity meters, we removed water meters. So you can see that there's an effort, a deliberate effort by those who can afford. They would rather pay engineers to connect them illegally, because you can see that a lot of work has been put and attention into ensuring that they are back to the city's grid illegally. So this is what continues to happen, and we don't know why in suburbs and upmarket places where you think people can at least afford to pay for basic services.
I mean, are there other prosecutions you can bring, police, criminal prosecutions to the people who do this?
We fetch arrests as well in cases where we find that people have disconnected themselves, but we find that some are not even there. So we act outside, like we remove the meter that is outside and things like that. But it is illegal. Hence, when we go there, we go with police, we go with Metro Police. It's a multidisciplinary approach. Services which could be invested in many other things that needs to be done in the city, and that we go to these places. But this is what is happening. We were with the CFO of Johannesburg yesterday, going to Pasolia and the Glen, and it's across the city. Everyone does this. It's like customers have realized that there's a gap or there's a loophole, or it's possible to consume services without paying for them. And we're saying people must stop doing this.
There's so much going on with this in Uniso. Look, I mean, the other option is to try and put everyone onto prepaid. It's something that people have been talking about in the city for years, and I can't really see an argument against that. I mean, are you going to do that?
Even worse, we are rolling out prepaid, but some places which connect legal are prepaid. People bypass prepaid meters, Stephen. You find that the prepaid is there. In other houses where we do inspections, there's a prepaid meter. People are not vending for 6 months, and we're like, why are people not buying electricity but they have prepaid? When you go there, they last bought electricity last year for 200 cents. So you've got all these things. People are becoming more creative against paying the city, and it is wrong. Hence, we're writing statements. We're out there reminding people of the importance of paying for the services they are receiving from the city. So even prepaid is not a solution to people who are hell-bent on breaking the system.
And Uniso, thank you. And Unisa Jeko is the spokesperson for the City of Joburg's Group Finance Department. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43517 now.
In our top stories, Ramaphosa vows to be a president for all South Africans, and Malema testifies in firearm discharge case. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the inauguration is not an ordinary day for the country and its people. He delivered his acceptance speech yesterday after his inauguration as head of state for a second term at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. Ramaphosa will lead a government of national unity after the ANC failed to secure an outright majority in last month's general elections. 5 parties, including the ANC, DA and IFP, have signed a statement of intent to form a government of national unity. The Freedom Front Plus and the UDM have also indicated their willingness to join the government of national unity. Ramaphosa addressed a crowd gathered to witness his inauguration.
So today is no ordinary day. It is a moment of fundamental consequence in the life of our nation. It is a moment when we must choose to either move forward together or risk losing all we have built. In this moment, we must choose to move forward, to close the distances between South Africans and to build a more equal society. This moment requires extraordinary courage and leadership. It requires a common mission to safeguard national unity, peace, stability, inclusive economic growth, non-racialism, and non-sexism.
Political analyst Tobani Zigalala says President Ramaphosa's inauguration speech did a good job of justifying the government of national unity.
Those who wrote the speech on his behalf and the speech is delivered, I think they did a very good job in trying to, one, justify and, of course, chart a way forward for the government of national unity. Without any interrogation of the government of national unity, you will be very much pleased and be much in hope in terms of what the future holds. But of course, if you go through deeper in terms of the government of national unity itself, how it is constructed, then some things start to fall apart. The recent position, of course, articulated by the DA and, of course, reflected in the statement of intent of the government of national unity, I don't think it bodes very well for the other smaller political parties which have been invited to participate.
The DA has won all 3 wards in yesterday's by-election in Beaufort West in the Central Karoo. The win now shifts power from the previous PA, ANC, KDF Council coalition to the DA. The DA has called the win historical as it cements an outright DA-governed municipality for the town for the first time. In 2021, Gayton Mackenzie's PA obtained an impressive win in the town's local government election, which led to the previous coalition. The 3 wards contested were vacated after resignations from 2 PA and 1 ANC councillor. Ward 1, 3 and 6 were won respectively by over 40% of the vote for the DA. The firearm discharge case against EFF leader Julius Malema will resume today in the East London Magistrates Court, with the state prosecutor expected to cross-examine Malema. He took the stand for the first time yesterday since the trial started 5 years ago to testify. He told the court the firearm he discharged during the party's 5th anniversary celebrations held at Sisa Dukashe Stadium in 2018 was a toy gun. Malema and his co-accused Adrian Snyman are facing charges of discharging a firearm and endangering the crowd. Malema says while there were many people in the audience, including law enforcement officers, the state failed to bring even one person to testify about the gun.
They say I've endangered the life of Mudansani people. Who of Mudansani people came before this court and said I've endangered their life? Who of the Gear House people, they are not EFF members, came before this court and said he endangered our life? Who of the service providers of the EFF, who are not members of the EFF, came before this court and said endangered our lives? Who of the journalists who were there came forward here and said you have endangered our lives? No single person came forward to say I've endangered their lives.
A woman posing as a doctor at the Tembisa Tertiary Hospital east of Johannesburg has been arrested. The Gauteng Department of Health handed over the woman to police. Both police and health authorities are investigating how she gained access to the hospital. The suspect will appear in court soon. Gauteng Health Department spokesperson Mutalatale Mudiba.
Unqualified individuals posing as medical professionals put innocent lives at risk. It is a criminal offense for any person to impersonate healthcare professionals and to practice whilst not registered with the Health Professional Council of South Africa. We have called on our employees and the public to be vigilant against imposters who seek to undermine the work of healthcare professionals.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the inauguration is not an ordinary day for the country and its people. He delivered his acceptance speech yesterday after his inauguration as head of state for a second term at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
And thank you. And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43517. Forget everything else for a moment and listen to this. Outsurance Essential is a custom-designed and perfectly priced car insurance product available to owners of unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued under 125,000 Rand. But the real game changer is the fact that your claim is paid out in cash, which gives you the freedom to choose any panel beater of your choice. SMS CAR to 43187 for an Outsurance Essential quote. That's CAR to 43187. Licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's cricket. Quinton de Kock leading South Africa to a thrilling 18-run victory over the USA at the T20 World Cup. And we have Richards Bay. They stay in the top flight after a decisive playoff victory, and that was against Baroka FC. All this and more just before 7:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
You're heading to Galulis. There's trouble this morning. A crash on the N3 north at Van Buren. So delays to get out of Germiston, Alberton territory. And if you're coming in from Boksburg, Benoni, collision before the Edenvale exit. Now starting to push traffic back towards the Jet Park area. Heavy delays on the other side of Joburg, the N12 Potch Highway coming in from Protea Glen or Lenasia. Crash before the Golden Highway exit at El Dorado Park. And the reason for the slowdown on the N1 north to Winnie Mandela is a collision just after the Malabongwe Drive exit. Durban's N2 north already standing from the M7 through to Westwood Mall. Cape Town, Robert, Sebokwe, Belleville South area just north of Symphony Way. There's some delays there if you're arriving from the sort of airport up into Belleville. There's some traffic to work through. And the N7 Jake Scoville Drive, Cape Town side queuing as you pass Langa up towards Beaufort Circle in Epping. Chapman's Peak Drive remaining closed due to rockfalls until further notice. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7:08. Good morning with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. Well, more on the new coalition, and already some evidence that not all of the parties involved are very happy with each other, but wasn't that really always going to be the case? We'll find out more about how people who have very different views work together. We'll speak to Professor William Gumede in a moment. Due to speak to Gayton McKenzie, the leader of the Patriotic Alliance as well. Quite a lot to ask him, actually. And then a little later, and I'm quite looking forward to this interview, we haven't heard from him for a while, Professor Malakapuru Makhoba. We'll just hear his views on how society is changing, and I'll also ask him particularly around the health sector, what kind of intervention would you make? We will talk about e-hailing cabs, from 8:30. And last week, the President signed the changes to the National Road Transport Act into law, and it allows a greater role for national government in the regulation of e-hailing cabs, your Bolts and your Ubers and Sheshas and all the rest. So we'll sort of have a look at that and speak to various role players in the industry and talk about transport policy. Quite important going forward, I think. Good morning. You're with SAFM. It's 7:10.
The Trellidor Ultimate Big Blue Sale is now on. Get amazing discounts on the best security South Africans trust. With over 50 franchises across the country, you can always find a security expert near you. So call 0861 Trellidor or visit trellidor.co.za today. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you ready to buy or build your first home or buy a stand anywhere in South Africa? If you are a South African citizen, you and your spouse have never benefited from a government housing subsidy program, and your household income is between 3,501 and 22,000 Rand per month, your dream can be realized by applying for a First Home Finance subsidy. To apply, just log into the First Home Finance application online portal at firsthomefinance.co.za or call a call center agent on 010-085-2199 to assist you for free with completing your First Home Finance online application. Beware, applying for First Home Finance subsidy is free. Do not pay anyone when applying for the subsidy. The NHFC is an agency of the National Department of Human Settlements.
37-year-old Taboko got a really great deal on his car insurance premium from Outsurance. He pays an amazing 762 Rand per month to insure his white 2018 Ford Figo Ambiente. He now has extra cash every month to go out for a meal with his friends. Get an Outsurance quote today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
7:11. Good morning. Well, this morning, President Cyril Ramaphosa starting his first full day of his second full term in office after taking the oath at the inauguration yesterday. He now has to appoint a cabinet and manage a government that includes, at the moment, the ANC, the DA, the IFP, the Patriotic Alliance, the PAC, and Good. There are other parties that may still want to join. Professor William Gumede, founder and executive chair of the Democracy Works Foundation, a professor at the Wits School of Governance, and was also the convener of what at the time was called the Multi-Party Charter Movement, since been disbanded. Professor Gumede, good morning and thank you for your time.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
To try and manage a government like this, I mean, I presume straight off that it's going to be very difficult. Is there a particular kind of approach or principles maybe that people can follow to make sure this thing works?
Yes, no, it's going to be very complicated, but it's still, I think, in this time of our history, certainly the best that we can put together given the results from the elections. But it is going to be, I mean, the ANC has been in power for 30 years and it dominates the public service. So the very first thing would be in terms of, let's just say, positions are given to the opposition parties, well, or like new partners, can't call them opposition parties anymore because now they're co-governing with the ANC. Then, a minister would have a public service, senior and lower, dominated by cadres, for example. How's that going to work if the minister wants to put through reforms, wants to increase performance and so on, when there is sort of political individuals or just incompetent people in the public service. It's difficult to make any turnaround, but that sort of thing. That's that's a very basic level. At a second level, at a higher level would be in terms of how's decision making going to work. I mean, the idea of a government of national unity is that there is no majority decision, so it's consensus decision making. It's very important, and that's different from a coalition, from a normal coalition. So, I mean, again, the ANC has been dominating, and do they have the culture to agree with, in real terms, in real life, what consensus this is making? I mean, when I say consensus on any level, whether it is foreign policy, whether it is partnering with business, the ANC has been a lot of very sort of anti-business in real terms, not in slogan, sort of in a speech. Will they accept, when it comes to the cons, consensus making decisions?
The ANC and the DA together have over 60% of the vote. And is that the key relationship, the relationship between them? Because, I mean, technically, as long as that works, the two parties can do anything together if they agree on it.
Again, I mean, the idea of a government of national unity is not. It's yes, one has to have sort of your core parties in there, because with a government of national unity, you want to get the widest amount of skill sets and ideas and political parties, and typically why there's a government of national unity is a country's in crisis. South Africa is in a systemic crisis, from world-breaking 42% unemployment, to just breakdown of the rule of law. So clearly, with 30 years in power, the ANC has been unable to do that, doesn't have the competence and the ideas and even the energy anymore, and that is why a government of national unity then becomes a good vehicle rather than an ordinary coalition. So I think what I have to try to do is it can't be too big either. I mean, you can't have many parties, then it's just going to be unwieldy. There has to be a core group of political parties to make the decision making. But I think the DA alone with the ANC, it's certainly not going to be sufficient enough. My advice has been to them also is really in cards of Freedom Party, so also as a part of their core group, to make decisions collectively rather than to say, well, actually it's just going to be one party, and the ANC has to be, they have to try and attempt to make it collective. But yes, the core group is the DA, ANC, and the IFP.
Some things are easy to negotiate. Even issues around race, which may well be the big fault line in this, could be negotiated. Yes, the ANC and the DA have very different views on black economic empowerment and affirmative action, but you can maybe reduce it to numbers for the sake of a negotiation. You can have not quotas, but whatever phrase you use or percentages in BEE speak. You could negotiate that. But some things are quite fundamental. So, for example, the ANC government, the previous government led by the ANC, I should say, instituted the legal action accusing Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. The DA can probably negotiate with the ANC over that one way or another. But the Patriotic Alliance strongly supports Israel. And this is an issue that's very difficult to negotiate. So, I mean, what does the ANC do then? Does the Patriotic Alliance just forced to, ignore it or live with it? Is the ANC able to ignore the Patriotic Alliance? And in real terms, they might well be able to ignore the Patriotic Alliance because it's small enough to ignore, if you see what I mean.
Yes, no, totally. No, I hear you. I think on almost every policy there's a balanced approach. I mean, the world is not black and white, despite the fact that I think many politicians do think that, and sadly, it's even in that case, a balanced approach. There's still a balanced approach possible. I mean, a balanced process in that would be more inclusive. Would be to say, let's South Africa, let's help to get the parties in Israel together and to talk, or let's support humanitarian action. So, I mean, and criticize both sides and so on. So, balanced approaches and compromise around these things. All of these things are possible. I mean, I guess, again, the idea of the government of national unity is that we don't have politics of extremes, and that it is not everything is a black and white, that there are nuances, that life, whether it's one's individual life or political life or economic life, is nuanced and more complex, and decisions and policies often have to be more sophisticated and more complex, more balanced, more inclusive, and that is actually important to get going.
Professor William Gumede, not the last time we're going to call on you, I think. Thank you very much indeed. Professor William Gumede is founder and executive chair of the Democracy Works Foundation, professor at the Wits School of Governance, and also was the convener of the multi-party charter movement. You were there, SFM. It's 19 minutes after 7. Well, one of the issues around the election is, I think, still the fact that where we are now is a result of the outcome of the election, which saw the ANC falling to just over 40%. The DA winning over 20% and MK nearly 15%. There's been a lot of conversations, analysis, thoughts on why this happened. Professor Malagapuro Makgoba suggested, in fact, and let me use his words, he quoted, this is what he said, "We can be grateful to Zuma for returning Jesus to us so soon." End quote. He's an author, former health ombudsman, and of course a former vice-chancellor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Professor Makgoba, good morning to you and thank you for your time. It's quite a comment that you've made. What do you mean? If it hadn't been for MK, if it hadn't been for former President Zuma, the ANC would have done better than it did?
No. What I'm saying is that remember that in 2016, the then President of the ANC and President of the Republic, President Zuma, said that until Jesus comes back. So he used the word rule and not govern, but that's a semantic, I suppose, in his mind. So basically what he was implying was that the ANC was going to govern forever. And in 2024, the ANC is not governing forever anymore. It has fallen down. Is it because Jesus has now come back soon, or something has happened, or has he brought back Jesus Christ? I don't know. I'm just using his quotation to analyze what has happened. And there's no doubt in my mind that the entrance of the MK party has really had a significant impact on the outcome of the ANC majority nationally. And as such, has opened a new door in the politics and democracy of South Africa.
There's so many ironies that come out of this election, and this happens in politics. But do you think former President Zuma realized when he started this? I mean, what he's effectively done is he's forced the ANC to work with the DA. And I mean, without him, I don't know if that would have happened. I mean, it's exceptional. It's astonishing.
Well, that is the thrust of my analysis, that you make a prediction in 2016 that you hadn't maybe thought through, possibly because of the arrogance and possibly because of the power of the ANC at the time when he was president. But I don't think that he thought this would happen so soon, and that this statement would be remembered because it was recorded and it could be analyzed, and maybe he can comment on it. But that was just my analysis of it. And also remember, the statement was not only in News 24, it was also in the Mail and Guardian.
No, I remember it very clearly when it happened. I mean, it was an astonishing thing to say then,
yes.
And people have commented on it many, many times.
Yeah.
Professor, I mean, so much is sort of changing in our country. Well, I don't know if it is. Do you think we're in a moment of very real change from your experience of our society? Do you think that we're actually in a moment where things are going to change quite fundamentally? Or do you think actually people are overexcited?
No. I think that this is what should have happened in 1994. It has just taken us 30 years, I think, of playing around and messing around. This is now the real change. I think President Ramaphosa has summarized it well yesterday, I think, in his speech. And I think he has what it takes, I think, to take us further. And I believe that this is an opportunity for all of us, citizens, parties, stakeholders, whatever you call them, to rethink and reflect on ourselves and what we really want to be as a country, a nation, and a constitutional democracy. And I think we are fortunate we have arrived at this juncture within 30 years. I mean, some countries are still lingering. For example, Zimbabwe, they're still lingering under the powers of the liberation movements and so forth, and they are not doing that well. So I think this is a great opportunity, I think, for us to move forward and to move forward in a different way and in accordance, I think, with the stipulations of the Freedom Charter, the Constitution, and the National Development Plan.
Professor Makgoba, I mean, you've played an important role in our society in different places, higher education, health most recently. What kind of change do you think we need in governance? I mean, everyone who goes to a public hospital will tell you that a lot needs to change there. What would your advice be?
Well, my advice has always been, I think, let's do what is best that we can do. I think we spend too much of our time fighting each other, swearing at each other. I think, being unequal and talking down upon each other. I really think that this is an opportunity to live to the dictum that South Africa belongs to all of us who live in it, and we can all make a contribution without being racist or without having racial thoughts, just trying to think of ourselves as a responsible nation to the rest of the world and an example, because I think the challenge of bringing enemies together, the oppressors and the oppressed, the superior and the inferior, it's a real huge national challenge that we should all take and make a contribution towards.
I think one of the issues that people have already identified that could be quite divisive in the new government is the NHI. I mean, do you think the NHI should be implemented? Do you worry that could be divisive one way or another? It has been signed into law.
No, the NHI has to be implemented. It is now law. There are obviously major concerns, and those concerns can be addressed. I think when people have got goodwill and they are all of common purpose. I keep repeating this. The NHS in the UK is over 70 years old. It still faces the same challenges that the NHI is facing in South Africa today. So this is not a journey, a once-in-a-time journey. It's a process and a long process that will keep on being challenged all the time. What we have to do is to have a common purpose and identify those things that can be done. And as I remember well, I think the minister did indicate that this thing is not going to be, implemented lock, stock, and barrel. It's going to be implemented in phases. Now that we have the government of, national unity, I think it is for this government to sit down and identify those things that can be implemented and define the time frame and to look at the improvements that can be made to this act so that at the end of the day, it serves the ultimate goal of what the NHI should be doing.
Professor, thank you very much indeed. Professor Malagapuru Makgoba, as you know, a professor and author, former health ombudsman, a former vice-chancellor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Very, very interesting and important views. 27 minutes after 7.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. De Kock versus Goos. De Kock won.
Yes, thank you very much. A shining De Kock was on fire, smashing 74 runs, as well as Kagiso Rabada. That's his bowling, clinching it for the Proteas. Wonderful win by 18 runs in their T20 clash against the USA. South Africa posted 194 for 4, with De Kock scoring that 74 of 40 balls. USA's Andries Goos made 80 not out, but Kagiso Rabada's 3 for 18 and tight bowling from Anrik Nokia ensured the USA fell short at 76 for 6. Rabada removed key players including Stephen Taylor and skipper Aaron Jones, who was out for a duck. Despite the host's late surge, it was Kagiso Rabada's discipline that sealed the victory for South Africa. Let's hear from Rabada.
The USA have been chasing well, and that's the reason why they chose to bowl first. And I must commend our batting lineup, especially Quinton. And at the end of the day, we got a respectable total on the board, or more than a respectable total on the board, which gave us an opportunity to, put them under pressure with the ball.
More cricket action as England began their Super 8 stage with an 8-wicket victory against the West Indies, having restricted the previously unbeaten co-host to 180 for 4. The defending champions England chased the balls with 15 to spare. England will play the Proteas tomorrow. And more action from cricket as the India women had a 4-run win over the Proteas women in their second ODI match played at the Chinnaswamy Stadium in Bengaluru, posting 325 for 3. In reply, the Proteas women fought their way to 321 for 6. Soccer action, Richards Bay retaining their position in the DStv Premiership with a 4-0 victory over hapless Baroka FC in the final Premier Soccer League promotion relegation playoff match that took place yesterday. The Natal Rich Boys, they finished 15th, second from the bottom on the DStv Premiership, but found themselves in a 3-way scrap against the University of Pretoria and Baroka in the playoff. And finally, tennis. Andy Murray forced to retire from his second-round match against Jordan Thompson at the Queen's Club yesterday. Murray was losing 4-1 in the first set when he pulled out, having received treatment around the lower back area and hip after 3 games. The 37-year-old is hoping to play at Wimbledon. Here's Murray.
During my pre-match warm-up, I was pretty uncomfortable, and then I walked up the stairs to go to just before we were going on the court. I didn't have usual just normal strength in my right leg. It was not a usual feeling. I don't know how many of you were watching, but the first 2 balls I hit in the warm-up, my right leg, it was complete, so uncoordinated.
That's a wrap of your sport on Sunrise. We'll have more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. More to come, more on the situation regarding our new government, your view on it as well, and more on initiations. You're with SFM, leading the conversation, 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa has assured South Africans that their cries have been heard and the government of national unity will not rest until every person receives the services they need. He delivered his acceptance speech after his inauguration at the Union Buildings in Pretoria yesterday. The firearm discharge case against EFF leader Julius Malema will resume today in the East London Magistrates Court, with the state prosecutor expected to cross-examine Malema. And Section 27 has published a report on climate change and the impact of more frequent extreme weather events. In 2022, KwaZulu-Natal experienced heavy floods and landslides, which led to loss of life and damage to infrastructure. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Reasonably busy in the Ekurhuleni side. Crash scenes on the N3 North at Van Buren Road are causing delays again out of Alberton and Germiston. You've got a combo of the roadworks there at Van Buren, which have been in place forever. And then you've got the crash blocking another lane as well. So big traffic coming through from the Elands interchange side today. That collision has been moved to the side of the road, so it should get a move on. The N12 driving into Joburg from Boksburg and Benoni, a crash at the Edenvale exit. That is causing a backlog through towards Jet Park Road. And a collision on the R21 staying in Ekurhuleni. This is southbound approaching Pomona Road. So if you're on your way to the airport, you queue into the roadworks at Clayville and then you queue through the Benoni exit down towards the Pomona Road crash scene. The N1 up through Midrand heading towards Pretoria is bottlenecking. There's a stationary truck in the left lane around New Road, and that's causing a backlog from Allendale side. The N4 into Pretoria. This is the Emelefeni Highway, again queuing up from Watermeyer Street down towards the N1 highway. Durban, bit of pressure on the M4, the southern freeway as you come up towards the closure of the road at Brook Street. A lot of roadworks in place around both Bayhead Road, around the South Coast Junction, and then South Coast Road between the M7 and Bayhead. So there's a lot of sort of unusual traffic backlogging going on. Probably a lot of trucks caught up in that disruption as well. Cape Town this morning, if you're driving in through Somerset West, a crash at Reunion Drive. So arriving in from Gordons Bay on the N2 towards Cape Town is quite heavy. And the highway's pretty gentle this morning. The standout today, though, is the M5 through Rondebosch, slow moving up towards the N2 highway off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Into our Lengla morning again, how the market's looking.
So starting off in Asia, markets are in mixed territory. Those stocks digesting monetary policy moves from the People's Bank of China. Policymakers on that end have decided to keep rates unchanged. Now with that, China's Shanghai index is trading 0.25% lower and Japan's Nikkei has gained 0.1%. Over in the US, futures are also mixed, mostly in the green though. Those markets still benefiting from the tech rally we saw at the beginning of the week. Back at home, sentiment has remained quite optimistic with the JSE's rally gaining momentum. The All-Share closed the day 1.2% higher and the Rand also maintained a winning streak, breaking past the 18 Rand mark, or under rather the 18 Rand mark as uncertainty around local politics somewhat subsides. The local unit is currently trading at 17.95 to the dollar.
And then local consumer prices remaining unchanged in May.
That's right, Stephen. So inflation flatlined to 5.2% last month. This is still at the higher end of the SARB's target range of 3 to 6%, which doesn't necessarily help boost that rate cut narrative. On a monthly basis, prices eased to 0.2% from 0.3% in April. Now, when digging in deeper into that print, overall food prices remain stable, but as winter bites, we're seeing an uptick in hot beverages, which quickened from 11.4% in April to 14.2% in May. This is the highest since January 2023. Now, inflation for instant coffee, ground coffee, and black tea stands above 10%. Instant coffee prices rose by an annual 17.9%. Stephen, now taking all of this into account, the average price for instant coffee, so about a 250-gram tin, was 82% higher in May 2024 than in January 2017. 2017 being the first year Stats SA started publishing average prices. Now, alongside this decline, Stats SA also noted price increases in both sugar and milk. So this may be the reason you're paying a little extra for your favorite hot beverage this winter.
And then Stadio growing its student numbers, a huge demand for this, I would imagine.
Definitely. Now, despite incomes being squeezed, it seems like South Africans are still prioritizing education. That's as the private higher education provider. Stadio recorded an 8% jump in student numbers. As of June, student numbers stood at 46,300 compared with 42,874 at the same point last year. Now, Stadio has been benefiting from a number of factors, including the rise in distance learning. This has been a growing trend since 2020 when COVID-19 hit. Now, growth on that end steadily increased 8% on an annual basis. Interestingly, there's been a recovery in contact learning numbers, with total contact learning student numbers up 16% and new contact learning students up 14%. Considering that there are more students returning to campuses, Stadio has decided to begin construction of its second comprehensive campus in Durbanville in the Western Cape. This will be 50% funded by debt, and the other 50% will be from its cash reserves. Stadio also expects student numbers to rise as we approach the second semester, benefiting from an influx of students on the back of the closure of a number of illegal colleges earlier this year.
Intaling Lechela, thank you very much indeed. More, of course, from Intaling tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAFM. 23 minutes to 8.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Well, how are you feeling about our government at the moment? Got to have a cabinet soon, so perhaps in the next couple of days we will see what the president does with regard to cabinet. Let's go to July in Limpopo. July, hi. The inauguration yesterday.
Yes, my brother. How are you?
I'm well, July. Go for it.
Yeah, actually, it was a very good event in terms of logistics. However, in my view, I see it as a waste of state resources. Because remember, Mr. Ramaphosa, the former president, was elected by minority in a National Assembly which was illegally constituted.
Why do you say it was illegally constituted, July?
You can open our constitution now. You go to chapter 4, section 46, subsection 1. You'll see that they were supposed to be 350 and above before they can get a one-third in order to vote. So
July, we went over this, and that's not what it says. It's talking about the actual quorum, and it's talking about how, and this is what the judges found, it was unanimous. But essentially, what the Constitution says, as I understand it, and as all of the judges and lawyers that we've spoken to have understood it, is that the total number of people in the National Assembly can be between 350 and 400. It is currently 400, has been 400 because of the size of our population pretty much since we started. And the MK MPs could have attended, but they chose not to. It was their decision not to attend. If they had chosen, well, to attend, then maybe the outcome of the vote would have been different, but they chose not to attend.
If they were there, then when they go for voting, they decided to be upset. It means we will be having a National Assembly. Then they didn't come. Then Section 53 allows that one third can vote for the president. So there were no National Assembly. In terms of the Constitution.
No, July, but that's not July. July, people went to court on this.
I'm talking about the Constitution. I'm not talking about individuals. In terms of the Constitution, the National Assembly is valid for 5 years. So it expired. So before that day, when they went and voted, there was no National Assembly.
No, July, I'm sorry, I'm going to end this there, but July, that's not what's been found. That's not the right reading of the law. And I'm sorry, July, but I think I do need to end it there. Kirk in Cape Town, hi.
Hi, Stephen. I would really like to see the MPs. I'd like to see the ministries reduced in the new cabinet.
Yeah.
In addition to that, I'd like to see. Or I'd like to suggest a change of role or title for members of parliament to become massage therapists.
What?
And the reason I say that is there's going to be a lot of massaging of policy within that the ANC has implemented and brought about in the last 30 years. Foreign policy, health policy, education policy. There's going to be a lot of stuff that has to be hopefully not altogether undone, but massaged to ensure that we have a sustainable economy and a sustainable society. So I think they've got their work cut out for them. The massage therapists, they're going to be very busy, and hopefully they will earn their money in the next 5 years.
All right, Kirk, thank you for that. Massage therapists, I'm going to remember that. Delani in Umlazi. Delani, hi. World Refugee Day. Good morning.
Morning, Stephen.
Go for it. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something about it today, but maybe you went away that today is World Refugee Day.
I wasn't aware of that, yeah.
Yes. How I also got to be aware about it is that, you know, when these elections are coming, we're all afraid that, wonder what the aftermath of them is going to be. Mm-hmm. But we're happy. Everything went well. Everybody accepted the results. And here we are. There's peace in our country.
Mm-hmm.
With others, it didn't happen like that in other countries. And then, as a result, other people are in foreign lands and trying to make it in foreign lands.
Yeah.
And I'd like to really say to all refugees in the world, I really empathize with you. I read many stories about how difficult it is to be a refugee.
Mm.
And I'd like to say to all that let's try and understand what refugees are. They're not here because they want to be. Nobody would like to leave their home. We know how we invest in them. And also to all those who work with them, that they must really not take advantage of them, as we hear how people sort of drag the process of getting asylum, asking for bribes and all that. And I really hope that the new Minister of Home Affairs who's going to come will really take this thing of refugees serious.
All right, no, Delani, thank you. Look, I think it's going to be a big issue. I really do. I think there's going to be a lot more conversations around it. I think it's not going to be that easy. Delani in Umlazi, thank you for that. I think there will be conversations around it. Peter in eThekwini, Durban. Hi, the elections, Peter. Good morning.
Morning, Stephen. Two observations. I think firstly, we must commend the ANC for maturity that's been shown in terms of how they've handled what has been really a catastrophic reduction in their support and how they've dealt with it from a leadership point of view, because given what's happened in other parts of the world, it doesn't always work out like that.
And that's almost been, sorry, Peter, to interrupt you, but we've almost that's almost been hidden, really, because we've been so excited about everything else. It's a really important moment.
It is. It's critical, and a lot of people didn't believe it would happen, actually.
Yeah.
But, Stephen, the main point is that really, I'm afraid, it doesn't matter who's in charge, what coalitions you've got. If we do not address as a matter of extreme urgency the poverty situation, the fact that people do not have food, no housing, I'm afraid all of this is going to be a false dawn, and it's going to be false optimism, because there's just too many people in this country who really have nothing at all and have got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid this new government has got to address that as a matter of extreme urgency, because otherwise this optimism is going to turn sour very quickly.
Yeah. No, Peter, I would
move quickly.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that must be the case. Peter in Durban, thank you. You were there, SAFM 086 000 2032 8:15.
Water infrastructure vandalism has costly and usually dangerous consequences. Stealing of manhole covers leads to the death of children. Every broken pipe or vandalized pump doesn't just cost money, but it also threatens our access to clean water, disrupts service delivery, and endangers public health and safety. Help us in the fight against water infrastructure vandalism by reporting any suspicious activity to the City of Johannesburg on 0800 002 587. Your vigilance can prevent a death or disaster. This message is brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Get private banking levels of service from an Auto & General private advisor. This exclusive service is perfectly tailored for customers with more to cover but less time to spend covering it. If you have more than a car to insure and your combined cover is valued at over R1 million, you qualify for this personalized service. Enjoy after-hours assistance, proactive policy management and more when you apply at autogen.co.za. Auto in General. Never not there. A&G is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Richmond United ladies have big plans to spend more time in the top 4. But First Touch FC wants to live up to their name and put together first touches that will trouble their opponents. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch them Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Richmond United Ladies FC versus First Touch Ladies FC. This Saturday, 22 June at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
That's the number. Mfundo on the line from Cape Town. Mfundo, hi. The national government, the new government, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, Stephen. Look, to me, it shows the maturity of our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
There was no violence that was reported. And everyone seems to, even those that are grieving, they are following the right route of the law.
Yeah.
IEC going to court, which is the good right thing to do. To me, it really shows the level of our democracy, how South Africa overcame the government of apartheid and merged to the government of merged to the democracy, national elections, and so forth. We have matured as a country. We have grown. We understand what it means to have a democratic right. To me, it really shows maturity. However, I'm just having slight concern, and I think it's high time that IEC and all the involved political parties to play a role. The number of turnout on election day,
yes.
those that are registered or not, it's not even 50% of our population of those who are eligible to vote that turned out on election day. And now, if the decline continues in this manner, then we're gonna be ruled by the minority because they will have to make decisions on our behalf. So I believe that it's high time that IEC and all involved parties start to educate our people the importance of going to elections. And I'm sorry to say these are my assumptions. Most people that are complaining, it might happen that are those that didn't even go to make their mark.
Yeah. No, Mfundo, I think it's such a strong point. You have to take part in elections like it's the most important thing.
Exactly, Stephen. When I went, just a parting shot, Stephen. When I went to make my ads, quite a few number of youngsters that were turned back because they were not registered on the voting station.
Oh, yeah.
And I was very concerned that how were they told that they can go and vote if they didn't register,
No, absolutely. Mfundo, that's a strong point. Thank you. I think there is a conversation to have around the need for registration. Lefono in Midrand. Lefono, hi. You want to talk about retrenchments at PRASA? What's happened?
Morning. How are you doing, my big boss?
I'm well, Lefono. Go for it, sir.
I was so disappointed when I hear that PRASA is rejecting stuff in the morning when I will listen to your guys about 25 past 5.
Yeah.
PRASA is the government entity. They have to save jobs of our people. Instead of maybe saving the jobs, so they're going to decrease unemployment.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not wise because if you can find it out, they're going to research maybe, let's say, 100 people. Those people that are getting, let's say, 5,000 each, and they're going to leave one person to get 50,000. To me, it doesn't make a common sense wise.
Yeah, Lefono, I'm afraid to say I haven't spent much time looking at that. The issue of retrenchments is always very difficult, especially for government entities. And you're right, of course, for each retrenchment is a tragedy. But people must also make decisions to manage an entity, so it's quite difficult. Lefono, thank you. We're going to look at that in the future from Midrand there. 10 minutes to 8.
At SFM Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter. SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still quite slow coming in from Protea Glen and Glenasia this morning. A crash on the N12 Joburg bound at the Golden Highway exit, pushing traffic quite heavily back into that Glenasia area. The N12 coming out of Boksburg and Benoni, the crash before the Edenvale exit still there. Traffic queuing quite heavily from the Craft Road side. And again, another busy morning where you queue on the N1 and N3 routes getting through Buccleuch for a connection onto the N1 towards Midrand. So currently got the N1 sitting back to Rivonia and the N3 sitting back into Linbro Park. Plenty of open space on the alternative side roads. If you don't fancy highway traffic and you're on your way to Midrand or through to Pretoria, just give the Buccleuch interchange a bit of a miss. Also a crash scene still with us on the R21 at Pomona. So effectively 2 queues to work through coming out of Pretoria on that 21 route. Got the roadworks at Clayville and then into the crash scene at Pomona, and that's causing a pushback right through to the Benoni off-ramp. Durban's M4, top end of the Southern Freeway coming in very slow. You got the closure of Brook Street at the top of the M4 for the demolition of China Mall, so that just forces traffic to sort of queue up and hit some alternative routes which are also restricted in that area, and a lot of other traffic just sort of backing out of that and clogging up Victoria Embankment on your way in as well. A lot of roadworks around both Bayhead Road and South Coast Road options in the Bayhead area. Watch for some delays there, particularly with trucks stacking up. It looks particularly heavy on South Coast between Bayhead Road and the M7 highway. Cape Town this morning, not a bad run through the traffic. The M5 is perhaps slower than you might be expecting. Queues through Rondebosch up towards the N2, and a crash driving into Cape Town approaching Somerset West. It's on the N2 inbound at Reunion Drive near that BP filling station, and that's causing quite a big delay from the Gordons Bay side as you arrive into that scene. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
7 minutes now to 9 to 7 minutes to 8 the time. You know the number 086 000 2032. Let's focus quickly on initiation season. And in Gauteng, 2 people have died, 4 people have been arrested, and listen to this, 138 abduction cases have been registered. This is illegal initiation schools abducting young boys and claiming they're going to initiation. Kiba Kekana is the spokesperson for the Provincial Initiation Coordinating Committee. Kiba, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
138 abductions. I mean, this is simple criminality. This has got nothing to do with initiation at all. I mean, you can't abduct someone, full stop.
Indeed, we, in terms of the Customary Initiation Act, that governs, how initiations should be conducted, in the country. Those who are conducting initiations schools outside of the law, they are indeed, doing something that is out of the law. It's a criminal activity. That is why the four that have been arrested, the school principals that have been arrested, they are arrested because they are conducting illegal initiation schools.
Okay, this issue of abductions, I mean, schools abducting people from their communities. I mean, surely, people should be arrested and go to court straight away. 138 cases, 138 people being kidnapped, essentially.
There were 8 illegal schools that were operating because for a school to operate, it has to get a permission from the Provincial Initiation Coordinating Committee. So these schools operated without a permit, and kids with the initiates that were taken to the schools were taken without their parents' consent, and some of them were over, the age, the required age, did not also consent, for them to be in those schools. So we closed 8 illegal schools, and we rescued 138 people, individuals, that were later reconnected with their families, but they had to go through health facilities to be checked whether they are in a good condition, and some also received psychosocial support services.
You've got 138 people who've been arrested, right? 138 people who were kidnapped. Only 4 people were arrested. Now, there's no ways that 4 people could, abduct 138 people and keep them in some kind of illegal custody. So clearly there's syndicates. This is people just trying to make money. And what I'd like to hear, Kiba, I might sound outraged because I am. I don't know if you are, but we need much more than just 4 arrests if 138 people are kidnapped.
You're correct. The only way to arrest people is when we work with communities and they identify the culprits. When we visited the 8 illegal initiation schools, some principals were found, were arrested, the 4, and some were not found. That is, 4 were not found at the scene when we rescued the kids. So police are still looking for those 4 other school principals. And indeed, you're correct, because some people do these abductions because they want to extort money from parents, and they extort money in the region of 1,000 to 3,000, for parents to have access to their kids.
Okay, I mean, obviously we need a different approach in some way. I'm slightly surprised that parents haven't formed committees of their own and aren't working together to go and find their children, but I know it's a very difficult situation, and I don't know nearly enough about it. Do you think there's space maybe to change the approach, to have maybe some kind of exchange in policing of this? Is there anything we can do to make sure this doesn't happen next year?
We're doing everything in our power, because we've got the Provincial Initiation Monitoring Committee that is so proactive. We also have local initiation committees that are proactive. The reason why we were able to close these illegal schools is because we are proactive in terms of the monitoring committee. We know the hotspots, and then we pounce on these people. So that's been proactive, and we're working with the South African Police Services and other departments. It's a multifaceted approach that we do. The other challenge is that some parents are very reluctant to open cases, and that's a difficulty, because some of these people who are doing these things are known in the communities, but because they are criminals, when somebody does something outside of the law, somebody takes somebody's kid without their consent, that's criminality. So these people are fast, just to put it. So we also want to appeal to members of the community just to ensure that they report any suspicious activity that is taking place in their communities. And when their kids are not there, they should approach the local subs, local municipalities to report these cases. And we assure communities that those that are found, like the 4 that were arrested, will certainly do the same to anybody that is running these initiations outside of the law. Because in terms of the law, these initiation schools where school-going age kids are concerned, they should be done in alignment with the school calendar. That is, the season started officially from the 15th of June, this past Saturday. It will end on the 8th of July. Anything that happened outside of this without the permission of the PICC, it's a criminal offense.
Kiba Kakana, thank you very much indeed. Spokesperson for the Provincial Initiation Coordinating Committee. It says so much about the problems our communities face that this is happening. I mean, that people are being abducted under the guise of initiation, a traditional practice that's been running for a very long time. I mean, it's astonishing that this is happening. I don't know if you've had experience of this. Maybe you know more about it and could explain some of it to me about how this has become such a big issue that people are being abducted. Please, 086 000 2032. We'll find out in a moment the difference between the cost of a normal phone call, an old-fashioned phone call if you like, and a WhatsApp call. What is the cost difference? We'll do that in the next little while. You are there, SFM, leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43517 now.
In our top stories, President Ramaphosa commits to working with all parties and Malema testifies in firearm discharge case. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa has assured South Africans that their cries have been heard and the government of national unity will not rest until every person receives the services they need. He delivered his acceptance speech after his inauguration at the Union Buildings in Pretoria yesterday. Ramaphosa says the people have been clear about what they want.
Through their votes, they have made clear that they want the basic necessities of a life that is comfortable, happy, healthy, and secure. Through their votes, they asserted that they want enough food to eat, water that is clean, affordable electricity that is available at all times.
The DA has won all 3 wards in yesterday's by-election in Beaufort West in the Central Karoo. The win now shifts power from the previous PA, ANC, KDF Council coalition to the DA. The DA has called the win historical as it cements an outright DA-governed municipality for the town for the first time. In 2021, Gayton Mackenzie's PA obtained an impressive win in the town's local government election, which led to the previous coalition. The 3 wards contested were vacated after resignations from 2 PA and 1 ANC councillor. Ward 1, 3 and 6 were won respectively by over 40% of the vote for the DA. The Senzo Mehiwa murder trial will resume this morning at the High Court in Pretoria following an early adjournment yesterday. Vodacom Forensic Liaison Officer Pinky Vaithaligam is expected back on the stand. 5 men are on trial for Mehiwa's murder in October 2014. State Prosecutor George Baloy says they will be furnishing the defence with information on the distance of the cell phone tower locations in relation to the crime scene in Vosloorus east of Johannesburg. The firearm discharge case against EFF leader Julius Malema will resume today in the East London Magistrates Court, with the state prosecutor expected to cross-examine Malema. He took the stand for the first time yesterday since the trial started 5 years ago to testify. He told the court the firearm he discharged during the party's 5th anniversary celebrations held at Sisadukashe Stadium in 2018 was a toy gun. Malema and his co-accused Adrian Snyman are facing charges of discharging a firearm and endangering the crowd. Malema says while there were many people in the audience, including law enforcement officers, the state failed to bring even one person to testify about the gun.
They say I've endangered the life of Mudansani people. Who of Mudansani people came before this court and said I've endangered their life? Who of the Gear House people, they are not EFF members, came before this court and said he endangered our life? Who of the service providers of the EFF, who are not members of the EFF, came before this court and said endangered our lives? Who of the journalists who were there came forward here and said you have endangered our lives? No single person came forward to say I've endangered their lives.
Section 27 has published a report on climate change and the impact of more frequent extreme weather events. In 2022, KwaZulu-Natal experienced heavy floods and landslides, which led to the loss of life and damage to infrastructure. Margate and parts of the Eastern Cape have been hit hard by recent floods. The report focuses on the impact of climate change on children's access to healthcare and basic education. It explores the current state of children's rights in the context of climate change and mitigation efforts. Section 27 researcher Matsiriso Linkwasa.
In this report, we're highlighting the need to really reflect on how this crisis, while it affects everyone, there's a disproportionate burden that is carried by marginalized communities, which we highlight as being children, being women, and being communities that are generally sidelined from policy making and policy decisions.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has assured South Africans their cries have been heard and the government of national unity will not rest until every person receives the services they need. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Thank you, and that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS CAR to 43517. Did you know that with Outsurance Essential, valid claims are paid out in cash? Let me say that again. Outsurance Essential pays your car insurance claim in cash. That's cash paid into your bank account that you can use to repair your car at any panel beater of your choice. Outsurance Essential for cars older than 5 years, not financed and valued at under 125,000 rand. SMS CAR to 43187 for a quote. That's CAR to 43187. SMS now. Licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM Sports headlines, it's Olympics as there's a boost for Team South Africa. 75 athletes added for Paris 2024. And we look ahead to Saturday, where the Bulls, they will be in the United Rugby Championship final. And this is after their win over Leinster in the semi-final. We'll bring you the details. They'll take on the Glasgow Warriors. All this and more just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A couple of hold-ups you need to know about around the Joburg area. One is the run through the Buccleuch interchange. Again, just queuing up on both the N3 north from Rainbow Park and the M1 coming up from Rivonia. Those highways solid into Buccleuch for connections onto that N1 ramp to get you into the Midrand area up towards Allendale Road, if you like. There's also the crash on the R21 at Pomona still holding things up, and the N12 inbound to Joburg around the Edenvale exit still very slow going there as well. Durban side, the M4 Southern Freeway lined up in towards the CBD, the closure of Brook Street at that China Mall demolition, causing just a general backlog through Congella, and then a sort of reroute off the M4 in through the Market, Warwick Triangle area. So it's all a bit busy, and Cape Town still queuing up on the N2 through Somerset West. That's a crash by the BP services by the Reunion Drive junction. So coming in from Sir Lowry's Pass side, quite a backlog into that scene. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SAFM Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
7 after 8, good morning. You're with SAFM Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes as well. From 8:30, we'll have a conversation around the regulation of e-hailing. In other words, if you use Bolt or Uber, you drive along the road, you know the kind of cars I'm talking about, the little orange quadricycle or the Corolla or whatever it is. We'll sort of be talking about them and how they're regulated. Change is coming in that way, it seems. We don't know who the new transport minister will be, but one of the first things on their desk will be to issue regulations around that. I understand now that we will be able to speak to the Patriotic Alliance in a couple of minutes. Quite a lot to put to them about the new government. Good morning, it's 8 after 8.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
This competition is brought to you by Auto and General Insurance. Stand to win your share of 30,000 Rand in the Auto and General Combine and Qualify competition. Visit www.safm.co.za to enter. Auto and General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSB. T's and C's online. Auto and General is giving you a chance to win your share of 30,000 Rand in the Combine and Qualify competition. All you have to do is go to the SAFM website and complete the entry form. You might be one of the lucky contestants to get a call from us, and we will present you various objects that you can insure. If you combine the correct two that meet the qualifying criteria for a private advisor, you win 5,000 Rand. If you got an obligation-free insurance quote from Auto and General, you'll win an extra 1,000 Rand. That means that your total winnings will be 6,000 Rand. It's that simple. Terms and conditions apply. Well, our contestant this hour is William. William, you went and entered. William, good morning.
Morning, sir.
How are you feeling?
I'm nervous.
You know, William, I like the honesty. We don't get a lot of honesty on this program, but I like it when we get it. So I'm glad that you tell us that. Okay, I'm sure you're going to do well. Okay, you know how it works. For you to qualify for the private advisor service from Auto and General, which two options would you combine to get you above the amount of 1 million Rand? Okay, so I'm going to give you some options. Okay. You need to combine two of them. At least you need to get above 1 million Rand. Okay, here you go. I'm going to give you the options and I'm going to ask you for two of them. So you just bought a 2 million Rand home. You drive a car worth 550,000 Rand. Your cell phone costs you 25,000 Rand. Your home contents like your TV, your couch, your gaming console, your appliances are valued at 750,000 Rand. You also have a motorbike worth 70,000 Rand. Okay, to qualify for a private advisor from Auto and General Insurance, which two of these items would you combine? You need to get above 1 million Rand. Would it be the home? Would it be the car? Would it be the cell phone, your home contents? Would it be your motorbike? Which two of those, William?
A house and a car.
William, congratulations, you're a winner. You've won 5,000 Rand.
Oh, thank you.
Told you didn't need to feel nervous. Okay, for an extra 1,000 Rand, William, did you get an obligation-free insurance quote from Auto and General?
Unfortunately, I did not.
Oh, you were right to feel nervous. Okay. William, congratulations. You've won 5,000 Rand. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Stay on the line for us. William, congratulations. He's our winner, so he's won 5,000 Rand today. And similar to private banking, this private advisor offers customers a specialized service of having one point of contact when it comes to your insurance. For more information, you can visit Auto & General's website. It's autogen.co.za to find out more and to apply for this service. This competition was brought to you by Auto & General Insurance, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP, T's and C's online. You have it for banking, so why not for your insurance? Auto & General has just introduced their exclusive new private advisor service. It's perfectly tailored for customers with more to cover but less time to spend covering it. If you have more than a car to insure, car and home, and your combined cover is valued at over 1 million Rand, you qualify for this personalized service and will enjoy after-hours assistance, proactive policy management, and more. To apply, visit autogen.co.za. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
The National Pulse on SAFM.
Slashing sounds like, okay, maybe we're going to save, but sometimes you could actually lose your productivity. Why the slashing of cabinet positions?
You know about the austerity measures that have been put in place. That also affected the Department of Health in terms of hiring of staff and attending to broken equipment and all of these things. So we thought we need to use this opportunity whilst government is starting from scratch to suggest that let us start with the issue of saving money by taking down, the number of ministers that we have, so that we save money for the other things.
Appreciated. There we are, Dr. Mbuyisi Mzukwa, who's the South African Medical Association chairperson.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m. Stephen Grootes on SAFM.
All right, still lots to talk about this morning and still a lot happening in the new government, currently called the Government of National Unity. And one of the parties in the Patriotic Alliance is one of the parties in the government, is the Patriotic Alliance. And there's quite a bit to ask them because various things have been happening. Kenny Kunene is their deputy leader. He's also a member of the Mayoral Committee for Transport in the city of Johannesburg. Councillor Kunene, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners.
I know you've been talking a lot about the coalition government over the last few days, but I'm still interested in this question. Why did you decide to join the coalition? What do you want from
it? Stephen, we joined the coalition because we want to put South Africa first. We want to stabilize government. We want to make sure that service delivery happens. That's the main issue. Remember, we've always been consistent from 2021 that we'll go into a coalition with anyone. Our president, Gaten McKenzie, even said even if the AWP was still around, would go into coalition with the AWP so that we can serve our people. We are in politics to serve South Africans. That's why we are in the Government of National Unity.
Okay. There's a few things that have happened over the last few days. One of them is the DA says there's nothing in agreement. There's nothing. Let me start again. The DA says there's nothing in its agreement with the ANC about other parties. And together, the ANC and the DA have over 60% of the vote. Are you worried that you could be in the government but basically ignored? I mean, they could really govern without you if they wanted to. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying if they wanted to, they could.
Stephen, unfortunately, Helen Zille can't just stay out of being arrogant and rude, number one. This document that has been signed is a statement of intent. It's not a contract. Once the parties, all the parties, or other parties have also joined, if they join, a final document will then be signed. And obviously, amendments will be done. I think she has helped everyone to make them aware that, in fact, the document that has been signed is not in the best interest of the GNU. Because I don't know how the ANC could not see that, or perhaps the ANC understood that this is just a statement of intent, and a final document still has to be done. She's very arrogant and rude, and I think as the PA we are vindicated, because even on your platform here, Stephen, I've always said that the problem of local coalitions, local government coalitions, has always been the DA, where we're in coalition with the DA because of their arrogance, because of their white supremacist tendencies, because of Helen Zille's attitude of black parties, and when I say black, I include colored, are inferior, and therefore a black man is inferior to her. Therefore, she is superior. That is why in that very same interview, she said that she is the founding party or the founding member of the GNU. How do you become the founding when you have been invited? In fact, we met the ANC as the PA before the ANC met the DA.
Okay.
So how is she the founding member?
Okay. So despite all of that, you're prepared to work in a government with the DA, despite what you've just said?
We've always said that we'll work with anyone, and we've worked with the DA before because we want to serve the people. We will work with the DA, and we will drive the DA to a point where the DA goes to a rehabilitation center of racism so that they are able to understand that we are in a South Africa that is diversified and there's no white person that is superior to any black person. We will get them there. That is why they don't want us in this GNU, because they know that the Patriotic Alliance is going to deal with them in terms of their superiority complex, in terms of their white supremacist and racist attitude and tendency. So that is why they are trying to get us out of this GNU. But we are not going to go out. The president of the ANC was very clear yesterday in his inauguration speech that the parties that are there to stay, and they're inviting more. So the DA does not want us because we are the only party that can stand up to their apartheid tendencies.
More than the ANC?
No, we stand up to anyone. We also stand up to the ANC. But at this point in time, we are talking about the DA.
Okay.
And I'm saying, Stephen, the attitude that Helen Zille showed on that interview is exactly what we have been saying. You could see that, and you could hear that she believes that she's the madam, she's the alpha and the omega. How do you embarrass your partner who has 40%? She embarrassed the ANC. She portrayed the ANC as a party that did not even read the document, that does not even understand what they signed. You can't do that with your partner. So, sure. But it's her arrogance and her rudeness. But we will deal with it. We'll deal with it.
Okay, Kenny, there are a couple of other things that it would just help if we got to. One of the things that happened on Friday in some of the provincial legislatures is we saw what looks like the new government being reflected in the provinces. So while we were all watching in the National Assembly, in the IFP-led administration in KwaZulu-Natal, we saw it in Gauteng. The DA seconded the nomination of Panyaza Lesufi. So are you expecting the coalition that we're going to see in national government, including the ANC and the DA and yourselves and others, is that now going to be reflected? So it's reflected in the provinces already. Are you expecting it to be reflected at a local level? And where I'm really going with this, and I think you know this, is are you going to remove the EFF from power in Joburg and Ekurhuleni?
Look, we are with the EFF in Johannesburg. The PA is not part of the Ekurhuleni coalition. The ANC has failed to honor their agreement with us in Ekurhuleni. They've kept us out of that particular coalition. So we are in the opposition in Ekurhuleni. The road is long. But we are with the EFF and the ANC in Johannesburg. You asked my personal opinion, not the position of the Patriotic Alliance. I would want this coalition to stay in Johannesburg. We have been working very well. We understand each other. We have been all committed to service delivery, including the two MMCs of the EFF. the DA, number one, when it comes in, it is going to want to target officials. That's number one. That's what the DA is going to try and do, target black officials to get rid of them. That's what they do when they get into local government. However, it is not my call. But as the PA, we are in the GNU. We've also committed to being part of the GPU in Johannesburg. And if there is a decision by the GLU, Government of Local Unity, that the DA must come on board, obviously we will be part of that.
Okay,
but,
so sorry to interrupt you. Yeah,
we will seek to protect the integrity of the city of Johannesburg, and we'll seek to protect officials that are there. But look, we will be part of other parties. So a decision, if the majority says this is the way we must go, we will go that way. But we'll be part of that coalition.
It seems to me very difficult to see that the ANC could be working with the DA in national government, the DA in provincial government, and the EFF in Joburg. I mean, I accept, it's your personal opinion. I'm not arguing with that. It just seems to me to be quite difficult to think that's how this would end.
You are correct, Stephen. Helen Zille has already said that the GNU must also go down into to local government, and obviously local government meaning Johannesburg. So there is that possibility. Look, the EFF did not vote for the loan because the EFF was anticipating probably that the DA will then become part of the GLU. And I think that that was a mistake. So look, we will go with what is agreed upon, but we'll put our position, and then and then we'll take it from there. But there is that possibility that the ANC or some of the parties might say, or if the DA comes and the IFP, they might as well say, look, let the EFF go. They are not part of the GNU. But anything can happen in politics. You might find the EFF joining the GNU nationally, provincially, and staying at local government. Anything can happen in politics. Today, we might hear a different story in the afternoon.
All right, you heard it here first. Kenny, there are one or two other things. Your view on the situation in Gaza is very different to the view of the ANC, right? And I appreciate you say that you'll work with anyone, but I'm sure the ANC will retain and keep the position of International Relations Minister. And I'm sure that that person will continue with current government policy, so they'll continue with the case against Israel at the International Court of Justice. And in this coalition, every party is going to have to concede something. Is your support for Israel a principle you are prepared to concede in this new government?
Our support for Israel is cement fast. We are not going to back down. We will engage the ANC. We will engage other parties on the stance. Remember, our support for Israel is based on our religion, which is Christianity. It's based on our belief in the Bible. It's based on what Hamas has done.
Plenty of Christians don't support Israel, but anyway.
Yes, so we are not going to say, no, we are changing now. We are now rejecting Israel. We'll never do that. Christianity is our religion. The Bible is a book that we have faith in and that we believe in and that we follow. And it says, if you curse Israel, you curse yourself. If you bless Israel, you bless yourself. We will never back down from that. However, we are saying a two-state solution is a solution for the Middle East. That's what is needed to resolve this problem. But we are also saying what Hamas did to Israel was wrong. It declared war without following the rules, the international rules of engagement. You have to warn a country before you attack it. But they acted like terrorists. And Israel is well in its right to go and look for its citizens who are hostages. It's well in its right to go and hunt Hamas and make sure that Hamas is destroyed.
Kenny, we're going to run out of time, and we can argue about the Middle East, and there is an argument, a strong argument against what you say. But we're going to run out of time, and I do need to just keep this domestic for a moment. Obviously, we expect a cabinet. Is Gayton McKenzie going to be Home Affairs Minister? Are you going to be Home Affairs Minister, Kenny?
Stephen, you are not a tabloid journalist, but let me answer that.
I don't give. Yeah,
look,
go on.
The Constitution says the appointment of cabinet is the prerogative of the president, and in our discussions with the ANC, they did make that clear. And the president will have one-on-ones with the leaders of political parties that are part of the GNU. To discuss and engage on the deployments. So we are waiting for that meeting to happen, and then we will hear from that. It's an engagement. Our wish is to have Ministry of Home Affairs so that we can implement what we promise South Africans, which is abahambe, mass deportation of illegal immigrants.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Kenny Kunene, I appreciate you taking our call this morning. Kenny Kunene is, of course, the Deputy Leader of the Patriotic Alliance and is the member of the Mayoral Committee for Transport in Joburg in the informal working relationship currently between the ANC and the EFF in Joburg. Kenny, thank you. 27 minutes after 8.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. The Olympics.
Yes. Oh, excuse me. We have 75 new athletes. Team South Africa definitely bringing the heat to Paris. And this is now a total of 114 athletes in 15 codes for Team South Africa. The new additions include former Olympic medalist triathlete Henry Skuman and rower John Smith. 7 athletes have joined the athletics squad, and the women's rugby 7 squad now has 16 athletes. The cycling team features road specialist Ashley Mulman-Pasio and the cross-country riders Alan Hatherley and Candice Lille. With further announcements expected, this will be South Africa's strongest present as the Paris Olympics. Meanwhile, 3-time Spa Women's 10-kilometer Grand Prix Challenge winner Yvette van Zyl is aiming for a top 5 finish at the upcoming race in Durban on Sunday. Van Zyl, who is incorporating this popular event into her training for the Olympic Games marathon, is still recovering from the National Half Marathon Championships, where she secured a 9th place finish earlier this month. She's also using the 10-kilometer race as part of her preparations for her 4th Olympic Games appearance next month.
I am running on Sunday, Spa Durban. I'm excited for it. And if I can come top 5 and hopefully dip under 33, I'll be very happy. But the training the mileage has been high, and I've been training hard. So I'm not tapering for the race because I only have like 8 weeks. Well, this weekend only 7 weeks left before the marathon, and basically 6 to train because the last week is taper. Well, basically the last 2 weeks is going to be already taper, so basically 5 of loaded weeks.
That's 3-time Spa Women's 10-kilometer Grand Prix Challenge winner Yvette van Zyl. Now, the Confederation of African Football is expected to announce the dates for the Men's and Women's Africa Cup of Nations tournaments, amongst others, after the executive meeting tomorrow. This according to Lux September, head of TV and communications at CAF, speaking exclusively to SABC Sport. September says that the football calendar will feature strongly on the agenda items for the meeting. The usual July-August period has been taken this year by the Olympic Games in Paris.
Friday, there's going to be an executive committee meeting at 5 o'clock Cairo time, which will be chaired by the CAF president, Dr. Patrice Motsepe. The executive committee meeting will deliberate on a number of matters, including but not limited to the calendar, pending matters. So we look forward to what we discuss in the executive committee, and obviously I think we have to wait for Friday because I think Friday will give clarity to a lot of things.
And finally, rugby. The Bulls lock Ruan Vermaak assures there's no complacency ahead of the United Rugby Championship final against the Glasgow Warriors. On Saturday, 6 p.m. is the kickoff. The Bulls are focusing and aiming to secure their maiden URC title after a thrilling semi-final win over Leinster. The Bulls are set for a fierce battle at Loftus Versfeld. More sport for you here on SFM comes around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. E-hailing and the regulation. When can someone act as a taxi driver? When can't they? That's coming next. You're with SFM leading the conversation 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the United National Transport Union has expressed concern following reports that the Passenger Rail Agency is considering retrenchments as the entity struggles to stay financially sound. President Cyril Ramaphosa has assured South Africans their cries have been heard and the government of national unity will not rest until every person receives the services they need. And the Russian President Vladimir Putin is in the Vietnamese capital on the second stage of his East Asian tour. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There's an unusual queue coming out of Pretoria this morning on the M1 South. It is reasonably heavy by today's standards, approaching that sinkhole closure at the R21. So from Rigel Avenue, it's all heavily backed up towards the R21. And the R21 North approaching the N1 is quite slow as well. You hit that queue just after Nell Napier's Drive. Still queuing up on the N1 North and the N3 North. Those highways jamming into the clue for connections on that ram that'll take you up into the mid-Rand area. Bit of traffic on the Mike one as well, just approaching Grayston Drive, so coming through from Melrose is busy. There is a crash on your way to Pietermaritzburg around Umlas Road. That's a big heavy queue across all lanes, trucks and vehicles stacked back as far as Camperdown. If you're on your way to PMB, that's quite a heavy queue. If it's not urgent, you might want to just delay your travel until that scene is cleared up. Cape Town, the N1 inbound is fairly slow this morning through Cooper Interchange towards the city centre. Marine Drive behind that is queuing up, and the collision scene out at Somerset West on the N2 at Reunion. That scene has been cleared. And just a reminder, if you travel between Albertinia and Mossel Bay, there's some real heavy roadwork disruption going on around the Koritz River area. So both ways, under stop-go controls and a couple of stop-go controls have you stopping and starting all the way through that section. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Municipal services play a vital role in keeping our city safe, clean and functional. By paying for municipal services like your water bill, you're investing in the future of the City of Johannesburg's water supply. Paying for your services is not just a transaction, but a commitment to the sustainability of your community. Let's continue to pave the way for a brighter tomorrow, one payment at a time. Brought to you by Johannesburg Water, a water utility that cares.
Get private banking levels of service from an Auto & General private advisor. This exclusive service is perfectly tailored for customers with more to cover but less time to spend covering it. If you have more than a car to insure and your combined cover is valued at over 1 million rand, you qualify for this personalised service. Enjoy after-hours assistance, proactive policy management and more when you apply at autogen.co.za. Auto & General. Never not there. A&G is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
26 minutes now to 9 the time for your mediated conversation this Thursday morning. Last week, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the National Land Transport Amendment Act into law. The new act provides for changes in how to regulate e-hailing drivers. At the moment, it seems the regulation and who is supposed to regulate these drivers is not entirely clear. This has led to clashes with the minibus taxi industry. They see e-hailing drivers as competition. And while minibus taxi drivers have to apply to use certain routes through associations, e-hailing works in a completely different way. At the moment, there are no regulations under the new act. It was only signed last week. It will be up to the new Transport Minister to issue regulations, and only then, I think, will we get full clarity on how this will work. So then, what kind of changes could we see in the e-hailing industry, and how will this work when it actually becomes operational? First this morning, you'll hear from the person who represents e-hailing drivers. The national e-hailing spokesperson is Batuka Mbalengwa. Then, what kind of policy should we actually be following? Dr. Mateta Mokonyama leads Transport Systems and Operations Impact Area at the CSIR. And finally, the competition with the minibus taxi industry, Theo Malele is the spokesperson of the National Taxi Alliance. We start then with Batuka Mbalengwa, representing e-hailing drivers. Batuka, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, Stephen.
At the moment, the burden of regulation, if you want to drive an Uber, is the regulation falling on the service, so actually the Uber app, or is it falling on drivers to become regulated and to get some kind of license from government?
I think the regulatory body should be formed of a collective, and the collective should include a representative from your bodies like Santaco and NTA in partnership with your Department of Transportation and your relevant municipal and regional traffic departments.
Okay.
Collectively, they should then form the regulatory body that will then oversee who participates and the terms of engagement within industry. I think Uber app and app companies should be subjected to regulation, and they should not then be a self-regulating body.
Okay. At the moment, what do drivers have to do? They have to have a driver's license. They have to get on the app. Is there anything else they have to do?
Look, there's a combination of things. When it speaks to safety, we should do a police clearance check. We should have a certified PDP. We do have a number of people who are operating illegally without those things. But I think beyond that, the regulation should be more broad. But I also want to appeal to the minister that we must have a really transparent process within this regulation. We must have effective engagement. I don't think that the heavy app companies that can afford the legal representatives that can demand appointments from government should be given any more preference than an Uber driver or myself on the ground. They are not more important than us, and we certainly need to be heard. We've seen Uber corrupt people all over the globe, and we should not allow for our minister to then come to let ourselves be corrupted or any other people in the process, because it's been 13 years waiting for this to be signed in. We've had so much change within the transportation sector, and we shouldn't then think we're singing Kumbaya now because e-hailing is now signed into law. It will really make sense and it will be effective if the regulatory framework makes sense.
You said on air now that Uber's corrupted people all over the globe. What do you mean?
Well, you look at your reports, you look at the Uber files and how their global behavior patterns, and those global expose that speaks to how they've behaved, especially in corrupting, in lobbying governments all over the world for favorable conditions to them.
Okay. All right. There are various things that could happen now, and one of the things is, and one of the big questions is going to be that someone in government, you say you want some kind of industry body, I don't know if that'll work, but someone in government's going to have to regulate these things, and there are various ways it can be done. At the moment, the province has certain powers over transport, but so do cities. They've been regulating taxis in the past too. Do you believe it should be the cities or the provinces or even national government? I mean, it's easy to imagine a bolt trip crossing a provincial border. Who should actually do the regulation? Someone in government has to do it. Who should it be?
I think there should be a repurposing of those institutions that currently exist, and their roles should then be redefined, and they should reimagine transportation holistically to say, how do we integrate technology and how do we make it a seamless process so province and municipalities are able to be aware of what's happening within their spaces collectively, so that law enforcement can also enforce, and then this speaks also to participation and safety holistically. So should we then be able to repurpose those institutions? Because currently the municipalities and the provinces have not been able to issue permits in many provinces. The permitting regimes have been under a moratorium, and they haven't been able to establish a new permitting regime. So this does also present a bigger problem to government to say, how do we therefore then create a proper permit and make it accessible to the public and make sure that we have capacity to administer and issue these permits?
One of the big questions is in terms of the number of drivers. So famously in certain cities, for example, there used to be a limit on the number of people who were allowed to drive as a taxi driver. And this did several things. One is that it made sure that those people who were driving were earning enough money. It also meant that there were often not enough taxis. Sometimes you had, I think it was called a medallion in New York, for example. It would be the last one was sold for a fortune because it was basically a guaranteed income for a long period of time. Do you think government should impose a limit on how many drivers there are driving for e-hailing services on the road?
Undoubtedly so. Influx control is critical because you look at the cost of entry to the sector, and you also then must appreciate who carries the burden of that cost. So you're looking at a vehicle, some driver training, some compliance. It's anything between 300,000 to 400,000 rand, and then you can participate within e-hailing. But then if you do not control it, What then happens is that you've got a vast amount of assets that Uber, who carries no liability, and Bolt that carries no liability, and being exploited on the ground, which then compromises maintenance because people aren't making enough money, which then gives way to more legal operations. So the economy itself should dictate the rate of growth, and municipalities working, understanding that transportation isn't e-hailing, transportation is an ecosystem, that how many more e-hailing participants should be brought on, but taking into consideration the whole ecosystem, it shouldn't therefore collapse, or there shouldn't be any preference to e-hailing. We want a healthy ecosystem within transportation to emerge. So yes, we should impose a limit on how many people can participate.
Batukum Belengwa, thank you. Spokesperson for National E-Hailing, representing e-hailing drivers. You're with SFM, 19 minutes to 9. Continue your mediated conversation around what appear to be the chance of new regulations for e-hailing drivers. Dr. Mateta Mokanyama leads Transport Systems and Operations Impact at the CSIR. Dr. Mokanyama, good morning, and thank you again for your time.
Good morning, Stephen.
E-hailing cabs have really changed the way that taxis work. I mean, 20 years ago, you would often find a group of men waiting in cars at a taxi rank or a shopping center or an airport in a central place. Now, you're looking at cars that are moving. They can be moving through all kinds of different areas. So creating policy for e-hailing cabs is something very different.
No, absolutely. Things are moving very fast. Things are changing very fast. We need to make sure that how we regulate is in line with such changes. In 2020, there was a presidential commission on 4IR that released a report. And one of the things they said in that report was we need to modernize network industries, including transport. And I mean, they went as far as saying at some stage we need to bring on board autonomous, public transport vehicles. So you can see how things are likely to change into the future. And if we still stick with laws and regulations that are, looking into the past and not into the future, we run the risk of increasing the cost of doing business in the country.
I think there could be quite a complex conversation around who should regulate e-hailing cabs. Should it be the cities or the councils or the province? I mean, if you live in one area in Gauteng, for example, in one trip, very easily, I think there'll probably be hundreds of thousands of people who do this trip every day. They'll start in Ekurhuleni, go through Joburg, and go to Tshwane. Is it obvious who should do the regulating? I mean, I don't know straight off who it would really be.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but I'll say there are two things there. One is to ask, why are you regulating in the first place? And ensure that you design the institutions to allow you to answer the why question. Now, in terms of who should be regulating, there are enough provisions in the current legislation to allow, for example, municipalities to team up and to create an entity that is able to regulate. For example, municipalities in Gauteng can team up to create an entity that enables all these regulations to come in effect. But also municipalities in a number of provinces can also do so. There's enough in the laws that allow for flexibility in how we structure, regulatory entities. But the big question is, why do we regulate? So we need to ensure that we design our regulatory environment to achieve the why. And that is why we often talk about performance-based regulations and not regulate the process. You want to regulate the outcome. You want to regulate to achieve an outcome. So the laws that, especially with fast-moving or fast-changing, technology, you want to look at the outcomes as opposed to their process.
Okay. You heard the question to our previous guest about whether government or whoever does the regulating should place a limit on the number of e-hailing drivers. And I think this could be quite contentious, and I gave the example of what had happened in New York or other places. You can have a shortage of taxis sometimes. Do you think government should get involved at that level? I mean, there are arguments both ways in this that I can see.
Yes, absolutely, you're right. The argument, for both ways. But then again, the moment you get into that space is an indication. If you want to regulate the numbers, it's an indication that you have failed to plan. Because when you plan, you need to indicate why and how many you need in your space. Essentially. And then ask the market to provide that service. So the moment you are reactive, it essentially says that you have failed to plan. And what we can do actually with the e-hailing platforms, they generate a lot of data, massive amounts of data. So the planning authorities could harvest that data and say, you know what, it appears that there needs to be services designed in this way because there's a demand in any case, and then start restructuring the network to provide such services cheaper.
Okay. We've seen clashes between e-hailing taxis and minibus taxis. To me, they seem to provide quite different services, but the minibus taxis seem to think that they're competing. Do you see them as competing against each other?
Not necessarily competing. I think in the numbers that we have looked at, the surveys that we have done, it shows that e-hailing is a tiny proportion of the demand, the number of journeys, trips that are there. You're talking about 100 million journeys every day, including walking. And e-hailing at best does about 100,000, trips a day. So it's a small proportion. And you look at why people use e-hailing. It is for areas where there's market failure. There's no services necessarily for that time of the day, for that trip or region and destination. So it addresses a market failure, a niche, kind of a service. So there is very little competition that is there, and there's a role for e-hailing, and there's also a role for route-based services.
It seems to me, Dr. Makanyama, that there could be a lot more change to come. And let me just explain where I'm going with this. Because we're moving people around, and people are in a minibus taxi because they need to move somewhere, and they need to move together because that's the cheapest way to do it in a minibus taxi. We've seen quite recently Bolt using these little orange quadricycles, right? They look like a car, but it's actually legally a quadricycle. They take one passenger at a time. And in other countries, you will see people driving around on motorbikes, stopping and picking up one passenger at a time. And that's incredibly cheap transport. I mean, you're probably looking at sort of, 10 Rand trip to go from one place to another. Motorcycles are very cheap to run. There's a whole economy to back them up with parts and all the rest. It seems to me almost inevitable that will happen here. The market will force that kind of thing. People will use it. I would use it because it's so cheap.
Yes. Is one way to look at it, to look at the market, is one way to look at it. But given the nature of transport, you need to look at both the market, but also the impact, the environmental impact, the congestion. So you need to balance these things. Ultimately, what you're trying to do as a planning authority is to minimize kilometers, motorized kilometers per capita. You're trying to minimize overhead costs, the cost of doing business in the country. You're trying to minimize the impact on the environment. So all of these things together, they need to be balanced. So it's one thing to serve the market, and you can flood the market with a lot of kilometers. But if 1 kilometer is inefficiently providing a service, then you're not really achieving your goals as a planning authority. So planning authorities, we want to balance these things. Yes, the market, but also the impact.
Do you think it's going to happen in South Africa? Do you think there'll be a big market for that kind of transport? I mean, I just think the cheapness of it means that it may just happen.
Yes, there's a role, again, there's a role for those kinds of technologies, for those kinds of services. But there's also a role for route-based, high-density, services. So there's a role. I think it's not this or the other. There's a role for different kinds of technologies, and we need to plan our networks in such a way that we provide for these interventions. But of course, we provide for these interventions in a way that is balanced.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Mateta Mokanyama leads transport systems at the CSIR. In a moment, Theo Malele from the National Taxi Alliance. 9 minutes now to 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. The Mike 1 into Stanton coming up from Melrose was busy when we last spoke. It is a little bit slow as well. Just that section between Caller Drive and Grayston Drive. Still queuing on the N1 and N3 routes, top of those highways as you link onto the N1 to get through Buccleuch interchange. So if you're on the N1, N3 wanting to turn through to Midrand, direction Midrand or Pretoria, at least just expect some delays. The R21 interchange with the N1's heavily congested. There's some delays coming from Rigel Avenue on the N1 South. It looks like there's perhaps an additional closure around the sinkhole that's been there forever. So Rigel to the R21 and just beyond on the N1 South is heavy. And the R21 North is queuing up into that area as well today. Crossing to Durban, if you're heading out towards Pietermaritzburg, we've had a crash around the Umlas Road exit earlier. That has all been cleared up. The M4 Southern Freeway into central Durban, the backlogs that we had moving into the CBD and that closure of Brook Street have also eased up nicely as well. Cape Town's N1 fairly heavy this morning through the Marine Drive exit in towards the elevated freeway. It's quite choked up going into central Cape Town. Behind that, Marine Drive starting to queue up for the first time in a little while through Pardon Island, just struggling to get into the N1. And roadworks back on the N2 at Botrefia. Some days they're there, some days they're not. If you're moving between Botrefia and Caledon, just on the eastern side of Botrefia along the N2, a bit of waiting at a stop-go control. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Mediated conversation on SAFM.
Continue a mediated conversation this morning around what we presume are going to be changes to the way in which e-hailing drivers currently operate. As you know, a new law is coming in. Regulations haven't yet been issued. We've heard from various role players in this. Let's hear now from the minibus taxi industry. Theo Malele is the spokesperson for the National Taxi Alliance. Theo, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stephen, and thanks for having me.
Do you believe that the e-hailing drivers are taking much business from you? We heard earlier from Dr. Mokanyama that there may be 100,000 trips a day compared to 100 million trips a day by other providers. In other words, the e-hailing drivers are a drop in the ocean. Do you see them as competition?
Well, yes, even if it's a drop in an ocean, but you would appreciate that for the past 10 years, the taxi industry's market share has been shrinking quite drastically, and this is precisely because of the existence of this disruptive, system of public transport. The thing is, the taxi industry is actually required to operate within a specific geographic network. That's where it actually gets its operating licenses to can do its business, but these guys can trade from getting out of their houses. They can crisscross, throughout the country without any repercussions. And yes, that has been a very, very serious contention when it comes to us being able to grow our business. And we were also a little bit skeptical that, as soon as the government puts this into law, that, because there was also Uber van, and Uber van could have been anything that carries 9 and even more people. And that was going to actually seriously encroach in our business, which is therefore why we came up with, alternative to come up with an indigenous e-hailing system for ourselves in the country.
Okay, so I mean, I understand that, but I don't think it's fair to say that because you're regulated in a particular way around routes, e-hailing drivers need to be regulated in the same way. I mean, they provide a different service. Yours is, generally speaking, mass transportation. Theirs is, generally speaking, one or two people.
Yeah, well, what you're saying is true, but you must also appreciate the challenges that this Uber has, or rather e-hailers have actually caused to the taxi industry, especially at malls. At times, they would drop off and even pick up next to taxi ranks. That was not welcomed. And there were also challenges because almost everybody has thought of, doing business or ferrying people. You would also spot, touters at these malls, coaxing people to come and, take a ride with them. So you wouldn't even know which of these are legal, which of them are illegal. And this also ended up, taking lives of people and, threatening the safety of the general populace.
Do you believe then that regulation of e-hailing drivers will be good for everybody, good for them and good for you?
I think it would be. It would. I mean, for starters, when this was brought into the country, it's been a foreign concept, and the spoils have been enjoyed by people overseas when South Africans, are going hungry. Yes, indeed, this will be okay for everybody, especially women, the most vulnerable members of society, who's been for a very longest of times complaining about the manner in which they have been treated by e-hailing drivers. Yes, this would bring in, tranquility, if you like, within the public transport space, but would also like to urge, government to hoist its weight, behind locally developed applications, so that even, indigenous app developers get the necessary support from government, and we together grow the South African economy, and not even a single cent leaves our shores to overseas as if South Africans are inept.
Okay, well, look, I mean, this has been a big issue in many countries around the world, and I don't think Uber developed with government money in any form in the United States. A lot is going to change in the sector, and it seems to me that what we probably also need is more nimble, more agile, more fast-moving regulation. It took a long time for this act to be passed, and now we need to wait for regulations. We don't even have a transport minister, technically speaking, at the moment. Do you think that government is actually, and a coalition government, Theo, is going to be up to the task of actually managing the sector properly going forward? It's going to need to move more quickly.
Well, we are hopeful that that would be the case, because one would, ponder and say, for the past 10 years, it seems as though we did not have a government, and it seems as though, there were no law enforcers when people were just trading without, the necessary registrations. We are hopeful that with the current political landscape that has, a lot of checks and balances, this may bring in some, semblance into our lives. But we're just hopeful. And not knowing if indeed, their relations would last. As you know, politicians have that propensity of saying yes when they mean no. So we're just hopeful that they may just, stick together like white on rice.
You've been listening to SFM for too long, Theo. Theo, thank you very much.
Yeah?
Theo, thank you very much indeed. Theo Malele is the spokesperson for the National Taxi Alliance. My thanks also to Dr. Mateta Mokanyama, leads transport systems at the CSIR and starting us off today. But Tukumba Lengwa is the spokesperson for National E-Hailing. They represent e-hailing drivers. All right, it's going to be fascinating to watch that space change. Talking of fascinating, a cabinet and Kathy to come this morning from Mdu, Stanza, Melissa, and for myself. Look after yourself. You're with SFM leading the conversation. Kathy, the inauguration, good morning. How was it?
Good morning, Steve Ovo. It was a very long day, but an exciting day to be part of nonetheless. South Africans have different expectations, but ultimately we all just want this country to work. That's the overwhelming sense that one got, that we just need whatever we need to get that right so that we can get on with the business of building this country.
A better life for ourselves and the knowledge that our children will have a better life than us.
Absolutely, because we've got nowhere else to go, right?
Yes.
You and I not booking
Yes.
tickets, not buying houses, not relocating out of South Africa.
Not even to Cape Town.
Good to see you, Stephen. Well, Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS card to 43517 now.
In our top stories, concern over looming retrenchments at PRASA and DA delighted with latest by-election results. Good morning. The United National Transport Union UNTU has expressed concern following reports that the passenger rail agency PRASA